Fair warning.
Okay, wait a minute.
Yeah, and it's straight at us, Christina. I'll be quiet.
Good morning, everyone. We're going to get started, and we're going to start with an opening blessing by Councilmember Ray.
Well, thank you all for coming. For you that traveled, thank you for making the trip. I'll start with the blessing. Thank you, Creator. Thank you for choosing this place on earth to share with our people. We ask you to continue to give us the knowledge to manage it for our deer, our elk, our salmon, our steelhead. We ask you to be with the communities as we balance back to this world. We thank you for all that you provide for us. We ask you to be with those that have suffered loss and they're having hard times this day, Creator, and fill their hearts with strength. We thank you for all that you provide for us, Creator. Buffalo.
Thank you. Okay, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our second day of the North Coast Quarterly Meeting of the California Truth and Healing Council. My name is Christina Snider-Ashtari. I'm Nihilikana and Makamo and a member of the Director of Rancheria Band of Como Indians, and I serve as the Tribal Affairs Secretary for Governor Gavin Newsom. In that capacity, I also staff the council, and just wanted to say a huge thank you to the council members who are here today, and a huge thank you to the Yurok tribe for this beautiful space, this beautiful welcome, and for having us here on your ancestral homelands. Thank you again for joining us, and we will begin with the agenda for today's meeting. Before we get started, I'm going to briefly walk through some of the logistics and preliminary business for today's convening. First, we are recording this convening, both on this little GoPro over here, and then also you'll see that there are several cameras around. If at any point you want us to stop recording or you'd like us to edit the footage to not have certain pieces of today, please let us know and we'll accommodate that request. If at any time you feel like the cameras are too intrusive, please let us know. We told them that they shouldn't be offended if you tell them to back off. And we also have Loretta over here is taking some photos too. And she'll introduce herself in a moment. Participation information and anyone interested in following council updates are on our website at tribalaffairs.ca.gov/CTHC. And if you'd like to follow us, you can follow us on our council updates blog at catruthandhealing.com. You can also get event updates at the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. We've had 2 virtual convenings this month and an in-person subcommittee on Thursday afternoon. Thank you all to all who attended, and if you did not and you would like to sign up, please come up to us at any point today and we'll get you signed up for some of those subcommittees. I'd like to remind everyone that in joining us here today, you agree to adhere to the Council's principles for respectful engagement, which I'll summarize in a moment. A copy is available online at our website as well. refusal to adhere to the principles which apply to all participants, including governing council members, staff, and community members, whether present or not, may result in your removal from today's convening. If you feel at any time that you need to step out or you feel that you may be in need of assistance, please find one of our team and we'll help you get some air. And we're also going to introduce you to some of the folks that we've got here today to help you as well. We ask that you uphold the following principles in all convenings of the council. So we ask that you please engage in the work of the council and with each other in an open and respectful way. We'd like you to feel comfortable saying what you need to say, but also we want to make sure that we're talking to each other respectfully. And where you feel like you may be getting feelings that are going to cause reactions that might not be helpful in this space, please find one of us and we can go on a short walk. We can talk through what you're feeling, and we'll bring you back into the circle when you feel like you're ready to speak and ready to engage. We ask you engage in behaviors that make others feel welcome. Take care of the emotional, mental, spiritual, and physical well-being, and seek support as you need it. Okay. Again, as a reminder, there's food over there, so if you need a snack, please go grab some food. There's water and coffee. And then there's also restrooms up the hill. If you need assistance, just let us know and we'll have someone escort you. If you get hot at any time, feel free to move into the shade. And vice versa, if you get cold over there, feel free to move into that sweet spot over there where it's kind of shady and kind of sunny. Okay. Finally, I'd like to remind attendees and folks watching online that as we work through today's discussions, this process is necessarily open to all Californians, but we ask that those who are here as allies ensure that they please respect the space and voice of California Native participants, particularly elders in this process. For those members of the press in attendance or watching this after the fact, we ask that you engage with this process with deference to the Native experience and that you commit to obtaining consent and final review from the Native peoples that you hear from today. We don't want this to be an extractive process, and we hope that you'll assist us in creating a safe space that is open, transparent, and welcome to all. So first, I'd like to have our governing council members introduce themselves to the group and say any words that they'd like to say, and then we'll turn it over to Loretta to introduce herself real quick, and then we'll go around and everyone can introduce themselves, and we'll also introduce our healers who are here today.
Queen Naknell, Frankie Myers, Vice Chair for Yurok Tribe and a member of the Truth and Healing Council. Thank you all for coming and having the discussion today. My hat's off to the state staff for hosting these throughout the state and for having the conversations. I know me personally, I find it difficult, really, really difficult to hear the stories throughout California. So many similarities as tribal people up and down the state. Some good, some not. Hopefully today we can continue that same dialogue, telling our truth. I think that is a huge part of the healing. There was conversations, I was talking a little earlier, there was conversations that we were having yesterday, things I've never talked about outside of our family. That was, I think that's been a big part of what keeps me going, for as much as I am a part of it to this point. Hopefully we can continue to build, continue to tell our story, continue to move this to action, things that we can actually do to change the current narrative with the state of California and with the federal government. Because I think this is a process that this nation needs to do. so much of what we deal with is on the federal level. So many of our issues are on the federal level and the state level, and I think expanding this out and having conversations about what the effect of the state of Oregon, Washington, and the federal government had on us as well is important. And I've often been thinking about lately as well the impacts of the Spanish and the mission system and how much that paved the way for what happened with the state of California, and the conversation around how much responsibility should the state take for that. How much should other countries have a conversation with tribes of California for that as well? And I think this is part of what I've been hearing and opening up. There's a lot of people that benefited from the suffering of California Indians. There's a lot of countries that benefited. There's countries that still benefit. There's states that still benefit there. California is still benefiting from it. So thank you for coming, and I'll talk some more later as well.
Open we can push. Greetings everyone, welcome. Leawe Joan Harper. I'm Pono and Kosmiwa from Marin and Southern Sonoma County. It's an honor to be here in this beautiful land with you all, and I just want to say thank you for participating. And on that note, I'll say ka api upu. Kamoish, thank you.
Councilmember Ryan Ray, Requa District. We'll talk about colonization, things of that nature. I think it's important for the people in this circle to take a look at themselves and the things that are happening right here. Talk about generational trauma. We've been dealing with some stuff right here on the reservation that is continuing to hurt tribal people. You've got tribal people hurting tribal people, and it's not good. You want to sit here and talk about the state? You want to, and the things they're doing? It's time to look in the mirror and really, decide who you are as a tribal person. What is right? So it's hard for me to focus on all these other things when my family has been hurt for a long time. We have been blocked from in order to do what we have to do to heal, to grieve, to do that type of things. We haven't been able to do that for a long time now. So it's hard for me to sit here. I mean, it's just, I got a lot to say about a lot of things, but it's time we look in the mirror and do what's right. I can imagine people in this room talking to. But as tribal people, we got to do it right. Whatever that is. You got to allow people to grieve. You got to allow people to heal. Otherwise, the trauma just keeps going. A lot of people hurting right now, and it's time to figure this out. And there's a lot of people hurting, so we got to try to figure it out and help each other heal. Because what's happening right now isn't right. But not to jump subject, but
good morning. Wow, that one works. You got the good mic. Good morning. My name is Neil Perone. I'm the chairman for the Tule River Tribal Council and the Tule River Indian Reservation in the southern San Joaquin Valley. I represent the eastern region along with our other council members here that represent their regions, but I just want to say that I'm grateful to be here. Interested in hearing the stories here and see how they coincide with the stories from our area. A lot of things we heard yesterday was what's happening at home. It's the same thing. There was a young man that really touched me yesterday, talking about his father being gone all the time, doing things for the people, and he didn't understand that and appreciate that till he was older. And I went through that with my youngest son, who's now 27. You know, you're always gone, and it's difficult sometimes as a Native person to have to go and speak when we've never really had a voice, right? We didn't become citizens till 1924. You know, our law enforcement isn't looked at as law enforcement and all these other things. But I think we have to start that journey. We got to take that step, and I think that's what this is. And we can't let it just sit there when we're done. There's going to be a report that's done at the end of this, but that needs to be carried on, even with the new governor, because a couple of years after the report's done, Governor Newsom will be termed out. So we got to keep pushing and keep striving to make things better. Our people's been through too many things to get us to this point. And, you know, we have our little ones. I love seeing the children running around having a good time, and sometimes they get into mischief. That's fine. That's life. That's how they learn. You know, like my little baby, tell them, don't touch the stove. It's hot. It's not hot. No, wait, that's hot. Right? So sometimes we have to learn that way. But this is that first step. So I want to thank you for being here. Thank you for allowing me to be here, and we look forward to moving this forward. Thank you.
And good morning. This one is really loud. My name is Loretta Miranda. I am a descendant of the Morongo Band of Mission Indians in Southern California. My great-grandmother comes from the Barren Long Ranch, Susie Pipa, and my great-grandfather comes from the Warner Springs area, Jack Linton. And I currently serve as Deputy Tribal Affairs Secretary and Special Counsel for the Governor's Office of Tribal Affairs. Previously served as Karuk's General Counsel and Associate General Counsel. Also did a little stint at Yurok with Judge Abby when I was in law school. I clerked for the Yurok Tribal Court. And again, just want to express gratitude to the Yurok tribe for hosting us here. It's beautiful. And also want to thank Cal Poly Humboldt for hosting us yesterday. And just really looking forward to the conversation and happy to see you all. We know that these conversations can be, you know, very heavy and triggering. And so we have partnered with the California Consortium of Urban Indian Health to help provide that practitioner, whether it be a traditional healer or a mental health practitioner, to be there for support during these conversations. So I'm going to turn it over to Sakui to introduce themselves and our partner for today.
Squinakoi, Nakna, Virginia Hedrick, Shagon Mewamecha, good morning, Virginia. I'm the Executive Director of Sakui, and I'm happy to be partnering with the Truth and Healing Council to do this really important work. And I'll pass to my colleague.
Oh yeah, good morning, everyone. My name is April McGill. I'm the Director of Community Partnerships and Projects at Sakui, and we've been blessed to be in these spaces with our California Indian people to provide support. I'm just a helper, so anything that anyone needs, whether it be water, whether it be, again, like walking someone to the restroom or you know, giving them that space, we're here to help. So I just appreciate being here. I'm an enrolled member of Round Valley, so I'm Yuki, Little Lake, and Wailaki, and Mishawaka.
And we're grateful today to have Michelle Rayner with us, and I'll have you introduce yourself. She's here as support to all of you here in the circle.
Squinakoi. I used to use a microphone.
So loud.
My name is Michelle Rayner, and I am a descendant of Wakel village here in Klamath, Pequan up the river, and Big Lagoon. And I am a licensed clinical social worker. I work in the Cal Poly Humboldt social work department, and do some counseling work for the tribal courts, Yurok tribal courts. I just wanted to share also, I teach this class called Decolonizing Social Work, and it's really about people starting out knowing more about tribal history and connecting it to people today. And I think that just every time I teach it, I always bring up my own Gram and thinking about like her 103 years that she lived through so much. Like she lived through so much you know, that she participated in her jump dances when she was a teenager, and then all that period of time where everything changed, and then when it came back. And so I just like reflect on that too, about when these kind of conversations come up, just knowing like some people, some of our relatives, some of our parents and grandparents have lived through so much, and we have a responsibility. So I meant to do an introduction, but I'm just always struck by these kind of conversations, like all of our own connections to life change and trying to return to those things that have taught us, and just thinking of her teachings of like, this is Indian law, and that meant we do this because that's what we've been taught and it's important. And just those reminders I think are important to us. But I also want to say I'm here as a helper, so I'm not gonna, this is probably my one time I'm saying something about things, but I want to be able to be a support to folks if something comes up and you want that space. So I'll offer that. Is the mic going to?
Thank you. And then I'd also like to acknowledge we've got Jason McCannell here who's going to be providing some help with research. So if there's anything that you'd like researched, he's the guy, and I'll have him introduce himself as well.
Yeah, thank you very much, Christina. That is very loud. I'm Jason McCannell. I work at California State Parks in the Director's Office as Research and Development Program Consultant. I'm a political appointee. I didn't take anybody's job. I just have my job, and my job is change. I drive change. I change place names. That's something to come to me about. I also serve on the Federal Advisory Committee on Reconciliation Place Names, so that's on a wider scale, looking at derogatory names that should not be on the map, like the S word. I am, what else? I am responsible for the Digital Atlas of California Native Americans, which I know a lot of you are familiar with. And, but mostly until the end of the council, I'm going to be here at the service of the council to do any research tasks, and also just to help compile and put together all the materials that the council wants to see in the report. So that's my job, and I'm here for you, and I'm very, very glad to be here because it's helping my healing too.
Thank you. So what we're going to do at this time is, in all of these convenings, we kind of go around the circle and introduce everybody who's here, so you all know who's in community with you. If you'd like to say anything at this time, feel free to share. If you just want to introduce yourself, that's fine too. So we'll start over here.
I'm Tina Goodwin Patterson, and I'm a Kodak Tribal member. I've kind of taken some classes in the past on Indian education and in Washington State, and it was really an eye-opener of why my father would speak of certain things and didn't want us to learn the language. He really didn't think that as a Kodak member that we would ever evolve, or as Native people we would evolve. And because that's what he was taken away to the boarding schools. And so this is kind of a really, really an extraordinary time that I think he'd be very proud to know that this is, people are speaking out and healing, and because a lot of that stuff was held back from the way we were raised and the way we were taught. And I always say that I fought my way back to my people, because it wasn't even a journey for my family to that they wanted me to take, because they didn't want us to endure some of the pain that they did. So thank you for having us here, and thank you for doing this, and thank you for having us to your lands. I appreciate it. Thank you.
I'll speak on the less loud one. My name is Jennifer Goodwin. I'm a Kodak Tribal member and newly elected council member for the Happy Camp District. And it's been a really interesting experience so far. I appreciate the stories that people feel brave enough to share with us. and I want to thank the Yurok tribe for hosting. And let's see, what else? I'm just happy to be here. Thank you.
I want to ask the film crew, is it better to use the louder one or the quiet one? Or does it matter? Okay, we're going to pass the quiet one around so everyone's not kind of scared every time.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Heather Turan, and the name my grandma gave me was Fuego Hopple, which is flying feather, and I stated yesterday, till this day, I don't fly in planes. And I want to say something this morning. Thank yesterday and today for coming up here into this lands and enjoying. When I go places, especially in Indian lands, which is everything, but the first thing I recognize is Mother Earth and all that she provides. Grandma always taught me when you go to different nations, tribes, ranchers, whatever, you make that offering because to your ancestors that were there, their ancestors, whatever it was there. So that's what I do, and I enjoy being here and also learning about the different tribes up here in North and hearing your stories, which the young man said are similar or more or whatever, but there's a lot of issues. You hit it right on the spot a while ago with tribes. You know, within the tribe, we're fighting as families, and then we have tribes around us, which are basically also related. You know, we're fighting, and my thing is, you know, we respect the land, we respect Mother Earth, we respect everything that she provides to the center of the earth to way up above, and they're listening to us. They see us how we're divided, and sometimes they're just simple little things that we make bigger and bigger. So we got to remember, if this is what we're doing, the medicine is all around us, and if you listen, you will hear. So they hear us arguing with one another, whether we're family, brother, sister, tribe against tribe. That's not what they want to hear. They want to hear us get along, love, and respect exactly what we're taught to do from our ancestors or grandmas. So that's what I want to leave with everybody, because that's what I'm teaching myself. That's what they teach me, the spirits. And they got a long ways with me, because, you know, when we bring in all this negative inside of us, you know, we live that way for many, many years. And we spread it all around, you know, and that's not right. So I just want to share that with you, because it really works. And you'll see you'll relax, when you pull all the hatred and all the ugliness that we accumulate inside of us, you'll start feeling who you really, really are. That's what I want to share with everybody.
Aikui Niknao Monique Sinoki. I am the intertribal elder advocate for the Sherwood Band of Pomo Indians. They got a grant to do a truth and healing project, and we're really leaning on the healing aspect of that. We've only had 3 meetings. I came in late. So we've only had 3 meetings, but I have up to 16 elders participating. And I think probably the most important thing I can say today is that when this started, none of them knew what the California Truth and Healing Project was or council was. And nobody in the tribe did until last week, when the council saw it on a line item that they got a grant to fund my job and the project. So I think we have to do a lot better educating people and inviting people and just getting the word out. But even still, when I talk to people about the project, I still have a lot of unanswered questions. And because everybody wants to know, well, what, you know, I'm going to go up there and give my trauma, and then what's going to happen? Where's it going to go? Who's going to hear it? What's going to happen? And I don't have the answer for them, and I don't know if anybody does. But we need to have more answers if we want more people participating, and we need to reach out more if we want more people participating. So because of my program, when I do meetings every other week, flyers go out to all the tribal members. It goes out to the newsletter. You know, we put flyers everywhere and at events. And I'm still only getting 16 elders. I want more. You know, I want all the elders. So I think that's something really important that we really need to reevaluate on how to reach out, because even outside of my job, anybody else in any other tribe, nobody's heard of this project. And people are interested, and there's a lot of stories to say, and these chairs should all be full, even if it's the third day. I've been here the third day, right? So how do we do that? We either need to share, what works for other people, and I mean, I'm handing flyers out to anybody I see in the store, I pick up elders, so we need to do better. We're here, we need to do better. We need to bring 5 people each time and just kind of go back to old school, I'm sure if we tell them that it's going to be salmon on a stick, more people will come, right? But if we have vans, and I would have brought more. I would have brought elders. I brought one yesterday, but 2 weeks notice is not enough time for people to take off work or to change their plans. Elders are taking care of their grandchildren. There's a lot of things going on, so we definitely need more headway. And I mean, there are a lot of questions about funding. How do we get here? My job pays for it. But, how am I going to bring anybody else from the tribe that wants to come? Where are they going to stay? I found out today we could have stayed here. That would have been great. I would have stayed here, So, I mean, we just have to start communicating to everybody on every level if we really want this to work. Because I have my concerns. And the more people question me, the more concerns I have. And I want to be positive, and I want to be able to let people know that something's going to happen, that things are going to change. But honestly, I can't offer that right now. So I'm just throwing it out there. I hope that's another topic, because other people at these meetings have said the same thing to me. So I'm going to say it, to you. Thank you.
Kasasaga, Nikki Yamkakan, Calvin Hedrick. I am Mountain Maidu. I'm Virginia Hedrick's husband. That's what I'm best known as, I guess. I am a community organizer for the California Native Oak Project, and I direct a youth program called The Fifth Direction down in Sacramento. And I'm always happy to come to these events and hear in different communities. And yeah, and I'm not sure, but I think I just heard Monique say that she wants to host one of these down in Sherwood. Is that what you were just saying? So that people can come. There you go. There you go. No, but I appreciate the voices, and just even talking about this from the last time I was at one of these in Sacramento. Just talking about doing one over in the community that I'm from, and the voices definitely need to be heard. And there are a lot of different voices. I've worked for a lot of different tribal communities, and there's a lot of different voices. And from place to place, every place that I've gone into, it's been, they've had different issues. In one place, they're saying, we need culture so that we can get rid of all the drug and alcohol issues. And in another community, they're like, we've got all the culture we need education to get rid of all these drug and alcohol issues. So from place to place, every single community needs something different. And I think when we really look back to the truth part of the truth and healing, is that the truth of the matter is that a lot of trauma happened in California all over the place, and it's different from place to place, but everybody's voice needs to be heard, and we need to trace back to that, to where it started, where the trauma started, where the healing needs to start, I guess. So I'm happy to be here. I love this community, so yeah, just happy to listen.
Aho, TK Halsey from San Francisco. I am a Friendship House youth ambassador, and I'm also on the Truth and Healing Youth Council. And it's pretty hot today, but I'm glad to be here. And I'm my mom's son, April McGill. You may know her. I tag along with her everywhere, but it's good to be here. Hope everyone has a good day. And I'm from Round Valley. Forgot to put that. Round Valley, and I'm Lakota.
My name is Noreen DiMaggio. Well, my English name is Noreen DiMaggio. The name that my grandmother gave me is Miranda. My people come from the Okayo, and one of the other names that I haven't mentioned is the Masukakeo. And the reason why I'm bringing it into the circle now is because those descendants, that's a hard word to say with them, my people were a people of peace, and I know and what I'm hearing in, this is the third day, and I was also in Sacramento, is that there are two camps, and that's how the Masupike live. There was a camp of the warriors and the fighters, and then the camp of the peacemakers. And they shared information between the two, and I'm hearing that we have warriors here that need a fight and need to know where to put that fight, whether it's fight in words, fight in actions. And then also I'm hearing, like, from the healers, we need to continue to have that peace as the foundation to strengthen those warriors who are going forward. And so in that traditional way, I'm wondering what type of activities can we do to balance both of those, to support the healers and to support the people, to support the warriors. What do they need? What do they need for their fight going forward? That's what the wind is bringing in today. So I will not add to that. I want to thank the Yurok people for sharing their land, sharing their excursion. It made me feel at home here. So, I'm
Councilmember for the Board of I have the whole picture of the city north of here. And I'm honored to be here today. My path for being a Yurok councilmember is a spiritual one. I lost a child in 2015. So that caused me a lot of pain. So during my grief, I yelled at David, why did you take my child? My whole life has been about being better than my siblings, being born in Yurok, being born in Haiti. There was a spiritual ball and chain that was holding society. Something always dragging me home back, spiritually, that I didn't know about. So in my grief, the Creator told me, she's with me. Your daughter's with me. So you don't need to worry. That's what you're doing, right? The next question I asked you is, why did you make me a Yurok? Why did you give me such a hard life? With a ball and chain holding me back in this community. Born in this colonial community. The moment I was born, they pulled me back, held me back. So I struggled my whole life, and not ever knowing why I was struggling. I started in I always wanted to be better than my siblings. You hear in the community of the colonial people here, that we're all drunk and drug addicts. We beat up our women. We leave our children. We don't take care of each other. So I lived with that evil on my shoulder my whole life. So I tried to be better than them, to be the thing, not the thing that they wanted me to be, but to be everything they said I'm not. So I started the journey to be healthy, to be a better father, to be a better husband, to be a better son. And it's a lifetime of work I had to do. It started a long time ago. Working in my community with kids helped me be better, serving my community. Became an example. The kids are looking at me. So I had to stop drinking. I had to stop messing with drugs. I had to stop all this. The children are looking up to me. So I worked and worked on myself. After my daughter passed, I went through that time with the Creator. I asked him, why did you give me this hard life? So I decided to run for council. As a Creator, is this what you did? Is this what you wanted from me? Did I do all this for this time I'm in now? And I got elected in that concern. Yes, that is all the trauma, all the hardship that I went through growing up in school where I am right now to make me a better leader. So that I never forget the pain, the suffering that all the other people are going through. I can relate to that. I relate to the child who's caught up in domestic violence that has no way out, the helplessness that child feels. I know all about it. I know about the young man struggling with the trauma, not knowing where it comes from or how to even attack it. I know that. I can relate to that. I can relate to the family struggling to provide for one another, to find a job, to find a home. Because I went through that struggle. And so that's how all the things that happened in my life I used to be a better leader. A few people talked about how internally Indian people hurt one another. You know, we have people living in the bushes over here. We have people, homeless people, we have drug addicted people, we have people with mental problems. But yet, how many of you in this circle will walk by and talk to that person like a human? How many of you will touch that person? I will. Because the least of us need us more than anything. As a tribal leader, I feel like it's my duty to touch those people, to make them feel human. And I wish the rest of us would do the same thing. Where not one of us is going to fix it ourselves, but collectively, we can all chip away a piece at a time to make it better for them. And so I'm excited. I got more to say. I'm just happy to be here.
So I agree. Now Rosie Claiborne. I'm the Tribal Heritage Preservation Officer and Cultural Resources Director for the Yurok Tribe. I also sit on Parks California Board of Directors, and I think you'll hear from me a little bit later about some of my work that I do with the state park system. I worked for my tribe for 20 years. It's my 20th year right now. I started in high school. And my passion really is, talking about the hard truths, talking about boarding school. I spend my career and I spend my personal life really, researching and, talking to elders. My mother was is a language teacher. She just retired from teaching at Del Norte High. And then previous to that, she taught at Del Norte High, Eureka High, in the school system, and, still works for our language program. She started our language program. And so, for me, I grew up in a really different environment than most kids my age. I grew up on the floors of elders' houses. Frankie and Virginia's grandmother was really good friends with my family, and I spent a lot of time on her floor while my mom was doing her research and doing her language learning and interviews. And I learned a lot then. And as a kid, I didn't really understand what that was about. I was too busy chasing the feral cats at her house, trying to trade her for them and pack them home. But that's really where my love and what I do started. Was spending time with these elders. Lady across from you over here, is one of my mentors, and I've spent my lifetime with her, learning what I do, and advocating for our tribal people and making sure that we're included in spaces that we were never included. And I'm a fighter, so this environment, when I get in these, it's a little bit different for me because
I'm always on that fight mode. And you know, I'm feisty, and sometimes when I walk into a room and they're like, "We get it, like you're okay." So I still have to do that every once in a while, and there's plenty of agencies, there's plenty of people at the state, there's plenty of people at the federal level that I can still do that with, but you know, I sometimes have a hard time tapping into like the emotional aspect of the work that we do, because I am literally always fighting. So, you know, I come from this river here. You know, my ancestral village is a couple bends up from Loretta, and that's a place where, you know, the jump dance, your skin dance for this lower portion of the river started. And so, you know, I come from that side of the family. I come from a family that carries that fire. You know, on the other side, on my Tolowa side, I come from Enchwadan, and Big Flat area on the Smith River. So, you know, I'm very connected to both my cultures, and, you know, my life, like I said, my life and my career blend a lot of times. And right now, like, I've been doing a lot of research on the boarding school and working with our language program, and we have a lot of firsthand interviews that we've been reviewing over the last kind of month. And, you know, I have this history talk that I've given since high school, and it's really evolved, and it's gotten really, really good. And, you know, I just re-updated it, and we included firsthand elder interviews talking about boarding schools. And so emotionally, I'm pretty like tapped out, because I've been giving that talk a lot over the last few weeks to, you know, our tribal youth. You know, we have interns here. You know, we just hosted my board here at Parks, California, and we talked about that for hours. So I'm gonna just stop there, because you'll probably hear from me later. I'm not really shy. So, yeah.
Thanks, Rosie. Victor Boyetz, District Superintendent, Northwest Redwoods, California State Parks. I appreciate being welcomed in this circle. I'm going to talk a little bit later about what I think that government role is, that state park role, and working with Indigenous folks. And so at this point, for me, it's about listening, it's about establishing relationships, and I'll build on that a little later. But thank you very much for having me here. I'm Bill Bowers. I'm the Associate Judge with the Yurok Tribal Court. Geez, you know, I didn't want to carry on, but I feel like I kind of want to do that. But you know, I think that one of the things that you know, I'm going to echo what our Parks person just spoke to, and you know, I think that I'm still somewhat in that listening stage of, you know, what's going on, and, you know, getting the pulse of the community in this area in Northern California. Well, my roots are here, and I come from Requa, the village of Requa up on the hill there. And so, you know, I've been somewhat immersed in the, you know, the politics or the of the tribes and of the tribe, and I think a piece there is that, you know, we all have those stories about this family, that family, and one of the things that I've been picking up on today is, you know, that trust piece. And I had a really good conversation with Frankie Joe a little bit earlier, and you know, really that's one of those things that we're here. All of us are still here, and there's a reason for that. We are not only survivors. I'm not going to, you know, that is one of the pieces, but, you know, there's so much more to it. That each one of you that are sitting here, whatever village you came from, whatever part of the country, because we were going to be eradicated. And you're still sitting here today, and so are your children and your grandchildren and maybe great-grandchildren. And so, you know, when you think about that piece of it, for me anyway, it's incredible. And we are at and all of the things that, you know, I've heard a lot about trauma today. I've heard a lot about a lot of things today. But you know what? We're here. We're sitting here today. We're in a circle. We're looking at one another. And I want you to, you know, if you really look at that and we think about how powerful that is, because they were going to do away with us, folks. And we're sitting here today. And back to the conversation with Frankie Joe, you know, what I gleaned out of that was trust. And that trust is trusting ourselves, trusting that family member, that the other family in that community. Things have changed in the sense that we are educated. We have come a long, long ways. And I personally believe that we may be a step above others in the sense of where we're at. I mean, not only the educational piece, we're there, but the piece about our spiritualism, where we come from. And we have to respect that about one another and stop other things within the community as far as that fighting amongst families or whatever the case may be. Because I think that and tribes, and once we do that and come together, this could be amazing. I mean, we could become a very powerful force out there. And I think it's happening. It is happening. I mean, you look around this group today, there's a lot of power here. And for one, it feels good to me. And not that that means anything, it just feels good to me. And so I'm really thankful for the young guy over here. Well, he isn't there anymore, but he was here. The words he spoke and where he's, what he's doing at this point. That's what a lot of young folks are, they're involved at this time, and they always have been in the sense that, I'm sure a lot of, the people here have been involved when they were younger to now. But we have a whole nother group coming along that are really, really, really smart. And, incorporating them into, some of that decision making along with the elders and those in that middle age. You know what? That's what it's all about. Working together, getting over those, this family, that family thing within a tribe, or that tribe does this or that, working together and being one force out there. I mean, we're there. I mean, science is, at least at this point, are looking at us and going, wow, there might have been something there. And I think that we have that piece, we have that ear out there at this time within the nation. So, I just feel like, it's a really good time to get together and do these things and move forward. I don't know if anybody has been in contact with, I know Frankie has, with the salmon people. We've gone to a couple gatherings. They've got a really neat thing going. It's a group from up in Bellingham. And it reminded me of this here today, just in the sense of, they're more about water and dams and fish, which, we're close to people. This is our deal. We're fishermen. And so when you come out of there, you just feel like you're walking on air. It's pretty amazing. And there's, this should feel that way too. That we don't have to stop. We can move forward. Thank you.
Are you queer? I think it's afternoon or close anyway. Now, Judge Abby, I'm the chief judge of the Yurok tribe. And as I'm listening to everybody, and everybody has said something that I feel is profound, each of you. And what I was trying to think of is, how do we start this? We've already started it. But in looking at truth and the healing, the truth. We don't know a lot of the truth because it was hidden from us. People talk about historical trauma all the time, but they don't realize what that is and how that trickles down to behavior. And work like Rosie's doing, for instance, is major, because that isn't like facts. It's, what happened to my mother and her sisters. That's what it is, and how that impacted me, and my decisions and how then I acted. And looking at the stuff that hasn't been researched or hasn't been told, How many indentured slaves came out of the North? A ton of them. And we know very few of who they were because nobody's done the research. And that needs to be done because a lot of those people ran home and they brought back a lot of pain with them. And rightfully so. And to sort all this out, we're going to have to know where the pain comes from. You know, because we know what the behavior is because we all live it. But we don't know where it came from. And we need to do that. And part of looking at truth is to really look at the truth and find the truth and let people know what the truth was. You know, yes, these people from your family were in boarding schools. Yes, these people from your family were slaves and indentured slaves. You know, and probably, as I said to a group of social workers once, not only were these children made indentured slaves, but they probably got to watch their mothers killed because how many mothers are going to let anybody take their children? Not going to happen, period. You know, and I think those kinds of things have to be out there, and then you can go to yourself, okay, I get, when I look at myself and I look at my academic career, I mean, I hardly ever went to school, period. Just didn't go. Over and over and over. You know, no matter whether it was elementary school, high school, college, law school. When I graduated from law school, I had to go to my graduation because my brother said, you've got to go to graduation. I'm like, what for? And he said, well, Daddy's coming to surprise you. And I went, oh my God, because I hadn't signed up. And then I went, and nobody knew who I was. You know, and where did that come from? It didn't come from me just being lazy or I needed to work. It came from the fact and the experience of my mom and her sisters at boarding school. I never went to school. And that was a pattern that started way back when. You know, what does that mean? And what's the fallout from all of that? You know, that's the kind of thing we have to look at. And we're looking now at some of our kids in their school and their schooling and how difficult it is for them to progress. Where did that come from? And how do we turn that around? You know, it's embedded in the truth that this commission is looking at, because that's where it came from. You know, we don't love our children any less than other people love their children. But these behaviors came from somewhere, and we need to look at it. And, you know, then we can help each of us get past that pain and walk forward. You know, because you don't know what you don't know. And one of the things I learned early on is that as a judge, the first 3 or 4 months, I would say sometimes to somebody, why did you do that? And they would look at me like I was going to tell them because they didn't know why they did it. And that's really stunning. You know, because that's the truth. They don't know where that came from. And if you don't know where something came from, it's really hard to change. Anyway, I appreciate that everybody's here and that Christina and her crew are doing this work because it is not easy work. Thank you. Welcome.
Ayuki Korwood. Hello, everyone. I'm Buster Atterbury. I'm the proud chairman of the Karuk tribe. And first and foremost, Yurok, thank you, Vice Chairman Myers, the rest of the Yurok Council for letting us walk on your lands today. We will pay our respects. And what a beautiful place. Testimony to that is, you know, when I got here this morning, I've done a lot of work. Thank you to Christina and Loretta for organizing all this and getting it done. I've been on many commissions, panels with Christina. Obviously, Loretta, we work together a lot. So whenever I see them, the first thing I want to do is go say hi and give them a hug. Well, I came in this morning, and Christina was sitting over here taking in the landscape. And my first thought is to go say hi, and I got halfway, and I thought, there's no way I want to go interrupt this serenity she's looking at right now. This relaxing moment. I was just, I'm going to let her soak it all in. She probably sat there for 45 minutes, just soaking it all in, and I thought that was pretty cool, and I didn't want to interrupt it. So I had a lot to say yesterday. I hope everybody took a little bit from that. The stories I am hearing, child member story about whether or not we would ever true stories. So I think with the Truth and Healing Council, we can figure out ways to pay tribute to our elders. You've heard the fight that they've had to not have their children taken away, to have them to change their names, to have them to hide out, all those stories. So the sacrifices, and we're still here, and they did a great job in protecting and preserving our culture. And so pay tribute to our elders, and then figure out ways to educate our children about our culture, the right ways. So that's kind of my message is honor our elders and educate our children. Thank you.
Hi, Queen Neknao Munchedad, Resident Rancheria of Yurok People, Vice Chair. I was talking yesterday about how uncomfortable it is to talk in these situations and to have these conversations, and it's not like we're not used to this. It's not comfortable, right? But there's a lot of issues that we need to talk about. Resident Rancheria is located right across the river. A lot of people don't know that. We were established in 1939, and we have ties to the original Klamath River Reservation that was established in 1951. Our land is completely in the floodplain. We have limited capacity to build. We need land. I'm getting very nervous. I guess I should just speak from my heart. There's a lot of hurt here that I see, and a lot of discussions that need to be had one-on-one with people here. And the state, I'm glad that they're offering this to be able to talk. I don't know, it's just really hard, and we have difficult situations. Everybody has policies in place to regulate their own land, and they should be respected. I hope that maybe after this meeting, some people can come together and we can heal together. It takes that foot forward to have these discussions. And I look forward to our consultation on Monday.
My name is Guy Dowd, councilperson of Resident Rancheria of Yurok People. I want to thank each and every one of you guys for being here today and sharing your stories. It meant a lot. There's a lot of good things said. I have three different directions that I was going to say here, but as you get to me in my heart and what I feel needs to be said, and like my sister sitting next to me said, these conversations are difficult, awkward, but that's how we get to truth and healing, I guess, right? You have to say the things that you're uncomfortable with so that we can fix one another. Growing up here as a young man in Delaware County, of a Yurok person, my family, your guys' family, we all fished. I grew up fishing on this river, you know. Growing up on this river fishing as a young man, waiting for the time for my kids to become fishermen. And in those days, an Indian was an Indian. And we all fished together. We all helped each other down here. If an Indian needed help with anything, whether it was upriver, downriver, across the river, we did whatever it took to help that person. Well, I think since that time, the state and the federal government have done an amazing job of the divide and conquer process. And where we sit today, you know, it ain't all their fault. I think like a person said earlier, we as Indian people need to look in the mirror and do what's right and treat each other with respect. Because we control that division no matter what anybody does to us. We're in control of that. We decide whether we want to divide. If we stay together, as another person just said before me, we can accomplish anything. But as long as we stay and fight with each other, the state, other government agencies, they stand on the sidelines and laugh at us. That's how I feel. So we, as Indian people, Indian families, tribes, it is time for this process to start healing and have these conversations and do the right thing. And me as a person and the two council people sitting to the left and right of me are open doors, because the main issue is for us is right here, and we'll do whatever it takes to start those conversations and start that healing. Thank you.
Here it goes again. My name is Kathy Dowd. I'm a councilperson for Resigini Rancheria. I grew up in this area all my life. My mom and dad were both Yurok. I'm from a number of 9 villages along the Klamath River, from the end of Trinity River called Earthliger to the middle called we call it Pecta now, and to which Peck. Then you go downriver. I'm from Notchville. Further downriver, I'm from Pequan. Oh, I forgot Neta. And then Pequan, Watek, and then a village at Blue Creek. I grew up as, I think, called Off. That's Indian. I believe in family. My main concern has always been water and fishing. When my dad fished, I've been in the background of everything, of my mom and my dad. My mom helped form what was now Coast Indian Community Resigini Rancheria, and we are starting to change our name. But I grew up starting as a secretary, then to the tribal manager, to right now I'm the tribal historic preservation officer, which I wish I was 30 years ago. I'm starting to put the puzzle together of people and places, because that's where you begin to know where you're from. My roots are strong. I know who I am. I know I'm proud to be a member of Resigini Rancheria, and I am a Yurok person, our lower Klamath River person, Klamath River. I am from those villages, and I do wish that the political entities stop fighting. Fighting could mean many things, but I wish they would get together and talk, tribe to tribe. Individual issues, come to the tribe. The council has been and have been open to hear any complaints that we have and talk it out. That's all we ask. Come to us. And yeah, I just wish the state would recognize us as entities to be dealt with on a true consultation basis, as to the water and fishing on the Klamath River. That's our main concern. And we always been in the background. We started out with the dam removal. We were behind there until we couldn't support it anymore, because we're a small tribe. We didn't have any money. We didn't have no state money then. I mean, the gaming money. The gaming money and the COVID money has improved our tribe at Resigini Rancheria. Our members, I'm starting to learn that puzzle, going through the documents and knowing why, and looking at some pictures. We're from a dance family. We're from Witch Pick. We are the deerskin dance, the white deerskin dance. When they bring it back, we at first weren't involved, but we are now. I had to wait for the men to get involved, because the women didn't do the leading, it was the men. But the women were the ones that did the work behind scenes. They were there to support that dance that was for all people. everything that we are here. Even right now, this land right here, when the white people start coming, my grandmother signed up for what was called homesteading. And she had land here, but you had to live here 10 years before it was yours. Well, when the 10th year came, we had a flood. She didn't get that land. So later on, our family got to get land over at Resigini, so that's how they start forming for there. But our grandfather, he had allotment, and he was the first one to get it in Pequan. So things change. I don't like change because it's hard to change. But I grew up as an Indian, and I never did talk before. I started feeling comfortable yesterday, a little bit, after I couldn't talk. But thank you for listening.
Aloha, Ayuki. A lot of faces were from yesterday, and a couple new ones today. But I don't know about you guys, but it's exhausting. I went home, I was so tired. Well, I didn't get to go home right away. I had a great nephew whose partner was she's 37 weeks pregnant, and she had to have an emergency appendectomy. So we went over to the hospital and sat with them for a while, and got notice this morning that her water broke, so she's delivering. And my daughter's got an infection in her face. I have a granddaughter supposed to be staying with me. She went off the river, so I'm a little late today, trying to deal with home things. But the stories that come out are really important. People talk about issues they have today, and a lot of the issues come from the way we were handled, because we were handled by government policies. And our future, I am very proud to say, is in the hands of the young and people like Rosie and my children and other people's children. And I'm so proud of the work they're doing, Mooney, you, and everyone, because being, I guess I have to say it, being an elder part of the community, we've observed what's happened and the obstacles that you guys have had to overcome in your life. And we try and do things the way we were taught. My whole life has been led through the Spirit, and I never was quite sure why. I come from a family of 5 children. Both my parents were ripped from their homes and sent to boarding schools far away. My dad was in Sherman. The only one who he kept contact with him that far away was one of his cousins. He was in the Navy, and he'd send him $10 now and then. And he talked about his loneliness. He talked about his hunger. He talked about the abuse that he endured. And my mom was sent to Chimawa, and they're both from the same communities up on the Salmon River. We're Masuato people. And why did my mom get sent to Chimawa, and why did my dad get sent to Sherman? What were the policies? Where is our history? And it's really hard to get access to those histories and to find out, and I'm working on research now, because what those policies did is they destroyed our families. And I've talked about this many times, how our children have holes in their soul because there's this void in their lives and they don't know where it came from. And the more research you do, the more you find out, oh, we know where it came from. You know, we're barely standing here today. You know, we weren't supposed to be here, any of us. If you're from California, it's a miracle you're still here. And the fact that we still do ceremony, we still speak our languages. Lauren's not here today. He went upriver to help Allie working on finishing the picks. We have a ceremony coming up real soon. And the fact that we still have that knowledge. When we built our traditional Tolowa dance house, the last one was burnt down in 1928, and we didn't have an example. There were some stories, but in the linguistic work Lauren's done over the years, he's talked to many people, and they says, oh, yeah, you follow us. He says, we never bothered investigating you. You're going to be extinct. So we don't have a lot of the research that some of the other tribes do. And they were pretty darn close. So when we came up against questions when we were building our dance house, we did it kind of the old traditional way. We prayed and we dreamt about it and we got our answers through our dreams and through our prayers. And so my life has been kind of led that way. The prayers brought me Lauren. And I said, be careful what you wish for. I've been stuck with him for 47 years. But I want you to know, like, our stories are our stories, but what it all comes down to is that the real truth is the spirit of the land, the spirits that live here. That is the real truth. Everybody can, argue about policy, this and that, but the truth is the spirit. And when people practice their ceremonies, they need to know that the spirit is real. And you don't do it to play around, you don't do it for entertainment, you do it for purpose. And if you take on doing those and you do it wrong, there is consequence. But if you continue to do what the Creator wants you to do, you are blessed. And I could give you several examples, but this one I'll share with you. So we always go up on the hill and do our prayers for our ceremony. And one summer we're getting ready for ours, and my oldest son was with they were girlfriend and boyfriend at the time, and she just found out she had MS, and she was very young. So we had a tribal member who's always wanted to take him up in an airplane. So finally he said, okay, I'll go with you. And he wanted his girlfriend to go with him. She said, no, she's going to take a nap. So she was laying down taking a nap. And he borrowed his sister's really nice camera. And he knew that if something happened to it, he'd be dead meat. So he was very careful of her camera. So they went up and they were flying around, and the guy was going to come and land in Gasky. And Gasky's a little airport, and they're bedrock up there. And they have a lot of wind shears. Well, something happened, and he went to land. He couldn't, so he went to take off. And the wind shear got him, and a branch on a tree grabbed the plane and ricocheted it straight down. And so that morning, before he went up in the airplane, I was looking at him when I was praying up on the mountain, and I saw him crashing in an airplane. What I didn't know is my husband saw the same thing, but we didn't talk about it. Because of my childhood and the pain from the boarding schools that destroyed our family, I became a very protective mother. They made up a word for me, hypermomophobia. And so I was one of those hovering mothers in every aspect of my children's lives. So I kind of I didn't really tell them about what I saw on the hill, because they think I stress and worry too much anyway. So I was in town getting stuff for a ceremony and got a phone call. Iowa had called his dad and told him that he crashed in an airplane. And Lauren goes, no, you didn't. You're just Josh. And he goes, no, Dad, I crashed in an airplane. And so somebody finally took the phone away from him because he lost his mind. And I said, okay, we'll call Mom. And then they headed up to Gasky. His brother was driving. And they called me, and they said, well, Pio crashed in an airplane. And I said, okay, I'll head up there. And they were worried because I worry so much about my kids, they thought for sure I'd wreck. But he called his dad. He called. He survived this plane crash. So we went up there, and we got up there about the same time. And of course, we know the road, so we drove a little fast. But we missed him because the ambulance was just coming out. And so we went and kind of saw what was going on. We went back to the hospital, and Lauren's standing in the middle of the road going, what do I do? I said, Lauren, get in the truck. Okay. And we followed the ambulance back to the hospital. And we get in there, and he had an empty camera case that he was clinging to his chest because he knew his sister would kill him if he didn't have the camera. It was empty, but he had the camera case. And we didn't know what kind of shape he was going to be in. He had a neck collar on. He had braces for all his body. And he walked away from that crash without a broken bone. Had some severe lacerations and, of course, a lot of things up. So, I'm being protective, so I'm moving a chair for him for the ceremony, because the ceremony went on because the prayers were said. He goes, heck with that, I'm dancing. And he had a brace on his leg, and he danced and everything. But the spirit was so strong that they landed in the only exact spot that they wouldn't die from bedrock. It ricocheted him. It hit an arbor on one of the houses next to the airport. It was a friend of ours. And it hit the arbor, then he had a deck, and then it hit the ground. So and it hit right between his house and his shed. And it's where his dog and him used to sit, but they were in town that day. He said he never takes his dog, but he took his dog that day. So they landed in the only spot where they could have survived. He got out, and he said the gas was streaming out of the airplane. And he ran around and goes, oh, I better go get Tom. And so he goes back and he says, Tom. Tom told us later that he was already crossing over and he heard Pilo's voice and he came back. And he got out of that plane. And at that point, Pilot says, well, I guess I can't goof around with what I want to do with my life. I need to start being serious. And that's when he started working on language himself. But through the spirits and the prayers, my son walked away from an air crash. The insurance company came to see him and said, we just wanted to meet someone who actually lived from crashing in a plane. We don't get to do that very often. And that's one of my things in life that I know the Spirit's real. There's been many stories like that. And I'm sure all of us have had those experiences. If you listen, the Spirit will talk to you and it will guide your life. I remember having a talk with Alvin one time when he was doing a presentation at Humboldt and telling him he needs to, you need to stay on your path and find your roots and get involved. And we've done it with many people over the years. Rosie's one of my girls. She's been my girl since she was little, and now she's my helper. And it all comes down to love, because the spirits of this land love us. And if you're on a tough path, which I know many have been on, I know the challenges that Bill's been through. We've had his kids as students, and we've worked with many students over the years. And the love of our children, not because they belong here, not because they belong there, just the love that they exist. And try and get them to understand that that love is what makes them strong. The love of the ancestors who aren't here anymore. I know my guardian angels have saved my life more than once. And you're never quite sure what your purpose is. But if you trust in the spirits and ask them for guidance and believe them when your answer comes to you and let them guide you, it gets you through. We're still here. I started being the spiritual female lead for the Palas in 1976. Then I took on the role of medicine woman for my tribe that cut it, over 20 years ago. And it's not easy work, and I hear a lot of sirens. But it's rewarding in the fact that my son walked away from a plane crash. The old lady after a ceremony, she said she used to go and put money down and use her luck for gambling. I said, nah, my kids have used up all my luck. I got to save it for them. But just try and live your life the best way you can. It's important that our stories come out. And like I said, our stories aren't just stories. It's our history. It's why we're here. We will continue. And when we do ceremony, it's not just for our people. It's for everyone. It's keeping the world in balance. There used to be in Delnart County a Aleutian Goose Festival they used to do, because the Aleutian goose almost was extinct. And some guy came and did a presentation in the 90s, and he said, we were sitting there listening to his research. He goes, yeah, but they almost were completely wiped out. And then in 1976, they started coming back. Laura and I looked at each other, we kind of giggled. When we started bringing back the ceremonies, and in between the rounds, there's a prayer given for everything that you need in the world. And one of the prayers was for the Aleutian goose. In 1976, we started bringing the prayers back. It's like, yeah, I believe. And it's, we had to deal with our pit being burned down one year. And they went over, the dance owners went over to a man, a medicine man, and they were wanting some guidance. And he says, well, can I read your hand? I said, oh, okay. So he looked at my hand, because I wasn't the one asking for help. I said, okay. So he looked at my hand, he goes, ooh, you like to shop. And Lauren's going, yeah. He said, oh, but you like to bargain? I go, yep. He said, oh, I said, yeah, your kids. And then he looked at me and he says, well, you don't think there's a spirit. I kind of looked at him sideways. He goes, you know. I went,
Yeah, okay, I'll take it. So, for the young, for the old, for the middle class, you're all here because you have a purpose. We all wrote our script before we came to this earth. And some of us put all of our obstacles at one time, some of them spread them out. But whenever you come against those obstacles, you pray and you ask for that help, and that help will come. And you let that help carry you through till you get past it to the other side, and to the next objective you have to do. So I just wanted to say, like I said yesterday, everybody makes a difference. You guys have endured 3 days. I know it's exhausting, and I live close by. So thank you for your time, your energy, and the love that brought you here sitting with us, and the interest. And I don't know how Loretta and Christine do it, because I'm exhausted after a few days listening to stories, and they do this over and over. So kudos for you guys, man. You got some strong ancestors guiding you. So, but thank you all for being here.
I've been thinking about this for a while, and I want to be clear before I start talking. I want to take off my Truth and Healing Council member hat, my vice chair hat for a minute here, and just talk to me as a regular Yurok Indian here. Why I'm here, right? And I sat for these sessions quite a bit, heard folks be able to talk. Maybe I was feeling jealous, like, I want to tell my story too, right? But it didn't feel appropriate in the different places that we were at. But this is my homeland. This is my reservation. We're here to tell our stories. We'll talk in the story of the tribal government. And I didn't know when on the agenda I should do this, but I'm going to do it now before lunch. I'm here because I'm a fighter. I'm here because my father was a fighter. And my grandmother was a fighter. And my great-grandmother and grandfather were fighters. We helped negotiate the Treaty of Peace and Friendship. Someone said yesterday that we're here because someone was a bad shot. I know the story of my family. I'm here because someone was a good shot. See, we turned out, we know how to fight. My family knew how to fight. We knew how to get guns. We knew how to buy them. The Yurok militia fought. They killed white people. They killed the army. That's why I'm here. It wasn't out of the goodness of anyone's heart that we have a reservation. It's not because they felt sorry for us or they're bad at their job. It's because we were good. Because we knew what we were doing. Because we were fighting. We fought back. We did burn homesteads. We did slit their throats at Bloody Camp. We did leave one alive. So he'd wake up in the morning and see the rest of his cavalry drowned in their own blood. So he could go back and tell the rest of them. We're here because we had people like Captain John, who was 16. It's crazy for me to think now, because I had a 16-year-old. They're older now. I couldn't imagine leading a war band at 16. I'm proud of being here. I know what we did wasn't easy for a lot of people. Some didn't agree with it. But I hope we tell the story. Chairman Adberry, I hope we tell the story of the Red Cap Wars. Because the Cudukes fought too. They killed people too. And those stories went all over the place. The U.S. government didn't negotiate with us for the Treaty of Peace and Friendship because it was peaceful and we were friends. We didn't negotiate a treaty for all the tribes because we all got along, because we were good Indians, or because we didn't do what we were supposed to do. I know this isn't everyone's story, but this is a part of ours. Maybe we shouldn't be proud of it, maybe we should be proud of it. I don't know. But I know if they didn't fight, if they didn't go to battle, we wouldn't be sitting here today. We wouldn't have this place. And it worked out well for us because they were running out of money. And it was harder to convince Congress to send more guns here. Because it was looking hopeless on their side that we would ever quit. And we never did quit. We never did stop fighting. Rosie's a fighter. Sometimes I gotta tell her to calm down a little bit. Shit. That's why we're here. Because we wouldn't stop fighting. We haven't stopped fighting. We fought the U.S. government, fought the California government, fight corporations, fight greed, fight each other. But I don't think we should forget that. And if we're going to tell the truth of what happened in California, I want us to tell the truth. Because the stories of us winning, that ain't ever going to be in the history books. They're never going to tell the story of Bloody Camp. If they have their way, they'll never tell the story of us getting them on the run. Ever. They'll only tell the story of how sad it was for us. I don't want to be rude. We've had massacres as well. We've had times we've lost. But the fighter inside me that yells all the time, reminds me we need to tell them and each other. We're not here because we're weak. We're not here because we lost. And we're not done fighting. This isn't history. This isn't history. And the only reason we're here is because we kept fighting. And we should keep fighting. goal is 100% of our land back. All of it. All of it. Not a piece, not a parcel, not a few acres, all of it. That should be every tribe's goal. That should be all of our goal. We should tell the story of the war band that snuck into the fort, took Colonel Anderson's head right under their nose. Not just the story of the retaliation. The story of Captain Jack should be known far and wide. But that's not the only one. That's not the only story. Probably should have said this a long time ago, when it first started weighing on my heart. I applied for the Truth and Healing Council because I wanted to get a better understanding of the history for myself. I didn't know nothing about Central California or Southern California. And I shared a lot of the same views I think white people did, to be honest. And I knew there were some folks who knew what was up, who were working. And I guess a part of me wanted to hear some stories about those who came before us and how they killed people. Maybe that's not right. But if they didn't, we wouldn't be here. That blood is what's alive, right? Like, that blood's what's going through me. I hope I raise warriors myself. I hope I raise fighters myself. I hope they do too. Hope we all do. There's a fight yet to be had. We still don't have all our land back. We still don't have control. The state of California still oversees us. The federal government still oversees us. You look around, we're winning. We're winning all over the place. We're leading all over the place. We're taking strides all over the place. Anyway, that was me. That's just me. I'll go back to being a politician here in a little bit. But I don't want us to forget. And I don't want that side not to be told. Because they don't want it told. I don't mean they and Loretta and the state. I think the general public don't want it to be told. I think they're pleased and happy when we just tell the story about how sad it was and how bad it was and how horrible we lost and the poor Indian. I think they're perfectly content with the narrative that we're the poor, sad Indians that are beaten down and downtrodden and don't have anything. I think that's a narrative that this country is okay with. I think what scares the shit out of them is that we're not. The people who fought and killed are still alive today. The blood of those people is still alive. And we're in your cities. We're in your towns because that's our land. We want it back. We will keep fighting. We will make money. We will build economies because our dances are strong. We still have healers. We still have medicine people. We still have warriors. We still have all of it. I don't think the general public likes that narrative. Because if there's still people to fight, there Maybe they should be scared of something. Maybe it's their home we want. Maybe it's their land that they own that we want back. Maybe they should be afraid because we should want it. And they shouldn't feel comfortable using San Francisco as the name of their city. They shouldn't. It shouldn't be okay. And they should start thinking about what we're going to come after next. And we should come together. We should stop fighting each other. But we used to fight each other a long time ago too. But it's all right. But we also used to come together and fight as well. We have the stories of the war bands that would take place. And we would gather. We would go fight. We'd go fight up the river. Come and fight down here every once in a while. Thank you.
Don't run away. I think Salmon might do that fall out. And then is it okay if we do the park presentation after lunch? Okay. So I think at this point we're gonna break for food. I think the salmon might be about done. So if folks could go to the tables, we'll break for a little bit and then we'll come back over and we'll resume our discussions. Yeah.
Oh no. I'll look.
I want to see if he's got a blanket, so then it'll be safe. It's getting cold. I was getting I know. I should put leggings on.
Trying to find a spot in front.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yes, I am. Oh yeah. Oh my God. But yeah, I knew
Okay.
Yeah, anyway, I do have my
Fantastic, Christina.
Hello, hello. Okay, we're gonna get started again. And we're gonna get started with a panel on tribal partnership and relationship mending with California State Parks. I'm gonna let you folks introduce yourselves and here are, it might not both work, so this is the loud one.
That's the loud one. Yeah, I don't know how to, here, Victor has to have the loud one.
Yeah, I've got a low voice, so you guys can hear me?
Yes, sir.
Victor Blyatts, District Superintendent for North Coast Redwoods. I appreciate what I'm hearing. It's nice to hear you taking off your different hats, Frankie. I'm looking around here and Rosie Claiborne.
Oh, Rosie Claiborne, Tipo for Yurok.
And I hear a lot of things. I can look over here and I'll see someone that said, Victor, you have to make it so it's not illegal to be an Indian. I'm looking around for Abby and talking about Western judicial system, people have rights. With Native American judicial system, people have responsibilities. And it's a different approach to how you work with folks, how you bring folks back into community. I'm going to be personal here for just a minute, and it kind of gets to where I am in that role. First generation immigrant to U.S. on my mom's side, second on my dad's side. My mom is from Newfoundland. It was a province of protectorate of England for 600 years, and then became last province of Canada. Kind of characterized as seafaring hillbillies. So you're woodsmen and you're fishermen. And other side, Eastern Europe, Serbs, some state service and some not state service. So the role that I have, it's like that, for a geography up here, what we're supposed to manage is parks from the Oregon border down to Laytonville, 22 of them. There are 14 federally recognized tribes and lots of other people from these different areas. And if you think of the way that government has treated indigenous people and lots of other folks, Japanese folks and Chinese folks, it's got a history that is not good. And you can be general about that. You can also read the laws that were put in place, what the legislators were doing, what the folks that were supposed to be negotiating with folks were doing. And what becomes clear is that every mechanism that the government, federal and state could use was applied to indigenous people to separate them from their land and to get those lands in the hands of immigrants coming in for whatever type of exploitation, whether it was gold or trees or our latest green rush that's up this way. And people intentionally, they didn't equivocate what they were saying. We want to do this because when you have a brother and sister that are put in different schools, that's intentional. The plan was to separate people from their land and get them as far away as you can so that you could take that land. So I come up in this area representing government, representing state parks. I've got a history of trying to work with folks who haven't been given a fair share. Not bleeding heart, but I don't like injustice. And if I'm in a place where I can raise a voice to something or do something that's the right thing to do, I try and do that. I'm not afraid of that. The things that we've been able to do up here, it's because of relationships that were established. The things that we've done, and I'll iterate through some of those. Every single one of those came from an indigenous person telling me what I needed to do and telling what needed to happen. And I've had people welcome me into community and give me information so that I could understand and better advocate for the things that they wanted. So as a bureaucrat, I have to be a master of my realm. I have to understand the laws, I have to understand the policies. And then with those policies that existing, how do you support people? How do you support people that have been separated their land getting back on their land? How do you support people getting medicine and foodstuffs and material cultural stuffs from their ancestral lands? And we can go to, give it all back. And there's what are those mechanisms for that? And there's, if there's a will, there's a way to do that. I don't think there's the will in California government at this point to do that. So what I've been trying to do are open up places that I can for people to practice their culture. In this district, we've done a bunch of firsts. We've used those mechanisms that we can. We entered into a co-management agreement, and we used the highest authority that we could come up with, the Joint Powers Authority. We've had precedent-setting MOUs. Show somebody your tribal ID and get into a park and do what you need to do. Those things didn't happen from government negotiation where we
all come with our rules and figure that out. Some of these things, there are people around the circle. It's because we had relationships and we had conversations and real talk and tried to figure out what was the best path to move something forward. With land acknowledgement signs, it's easy to say this is the ancestral lands of blank, but as government people, if you don't have relationships with people, it's kind of hollow. It's just it's that thing that you need to do for, is it 21 or 22 or whatever it is. We've been able to remove names that honored people that weren't honorable. We've been able to restore names from the original peoples. We've been able to do that down this way. We've been able to do it up in Del Norte County. We've had indigenous people practicing, having cultural practices on lands where they haven't for 120 years, 140 years. I had people talk to me right when I first got up here about the importance of ceremony. I think just about, with the exception of a few, everybody here has known contemporary ceremony all their lives. And there are those elders around that helped reestablish that and get those back on those places. And just worldviews and the way people think about stuff. I can remember I was about 19 years old. I was a college student, and I thought that I was discovering a lot about the world. And I was going to tell my grandma all about world politics and how it affects people. And I'm describing this stuff to her. My grandma was about 85 at that point. Immigrated to the United States, 1927. And I'm telling my grandmother, who's lived through a couple of world wars, has seen change all across the world, and I'm telling her about the world. And she literally pats me on the head and says, lots of ways of doing, boy check, lots of ways of doing. So a lot of people know that there are different ways of doing. There's different ways of honoring Creator, honoring God. There are different ways of feeding yourself. There are different ways of supporting your families. And what Western culture likes to do is separate them and then stack them. Which one's better, which one's worse. So when people say that you don't recognize differences, I don't see this, I don't see that, that's bullshit. People see it, and what you have to do is recognize it and say that it's equal, and recognize it as different, but not better than or less than. We've been able to enter into agreements that allow us to bring state monies into programs, indigenous programs that help people, putting dollars in hands that they need to be in to support cultural practices and support language. And I think that really what's made it different up this way, I'll give you an example if I can go from the way it was up here to kind of a different way of thinking. And that is, there's a contemporary ceremony that's practiced around here. And I could describe that as, there's a group of families that want to have a picnic on the beach. They want to spend 5 days on the beach. They want to have 200 or 300 people. They want to have 3 meals a day. They want to bring in all of this stuff. It's right by an archaeological site that needs to be protected. It's on the National Register. There's a listed bird there, and they want to have this ceremony in the middle of the breeding season. That's a perspective, right? That's how I would characterize it. That's a Western perspective. But how about we say there's a group of families that are supported, families from villages that have traditional cultural practices. People have lineal descent from this place where they want to have this contemporary ceremony. They're bringing in community. They're going to perform some things to bring the world back into balance. It's not just about one tribe getting back in balance. It's about people getting back in balance. It's about animals, plants, water, everything getting back in balance. Would one of those family members say, we don't care about this listed species that's there? Care about everything. And what I tried to do were remove those barriers from making that happen. Instead of putting out markers on the ground where we tell people to walk on the ground that, and this is a friend of mine says this, where my mothers, and keep going and walk. And I need somebody, some scientist telling me where I need to walk and where I can walk. I need some scientist saying, please don't impact your ancestral village. It's insulting to folks. So tried to remove those barriers and tried to do what we could to make that happen. And that's been my kind of philosophy on everything. I start from a place of yes, and then we figure out what mechanisms I can take to manipulate or do whatever to support it. What my problems are on my side of the house with rules and policy and law, that's my problem. If I say I'm going to do something, I don't bring my problems to you and say, oh, you have to help me do this, that, and the other. If we have regulatory agencies that need to be consulted because of the way that government works in California, we do that. We don't put that on families. Go talk to the Coastal Commission. Get a coastal development permit for this or that. Go talk to Caltrans and get an encouragement permit for this or that. But we try and do that across the board. We've also looked at the way that, I look at the way that state parks have been created. In 1928, we had somebody who had enough wealth that they could take a year off, travel around the state, engage local community. And these are usually the Anglos that are honoring whatever special natural resource they think, or advocating for whatever cultural history that they want. And then those became part of the state park system. Of those, 20 plus that came in 28, 5 of them are up here. And I've asked lots of people, and I know the names of the 120-ish people that were consulted around the state of California, and there's no indigenous people there. There's maybe 3 or 4 women that were involved. So you have to look at that dominant culture ideology and how it's perpetuated. We look at the folks that had the dollars to donate to purchase lands, and then what do you do with it? You honor them with their name. Look at the grove system that we have up there. Lots of names all over the place. So we're a system that was created by dominant culture. Dominant culture as invaders and immigrants who put laws and policies in place and tried to kill people. Indentured servitude was happening in California through the 1910s. There were judges that had indentured indigenous people, and they're the ones that are making decisions on whether that's a practice that they support or not. With all of that history in mind, how do we do things differently? And we've done a lot of firsts. I think Frankie alluded to that. I think it'd be great if we're the 160th to do it, 200th to do it. We've had, with the support of partners, indigenous partners up there, we've been able to do some pretty good things where we honor those racists and eugenicists who put laws in place that sterilize people and impact people's lives. And you go into a state park and you see that name, and you see that they're honored, collaborating with Nazis as eugenicists. We remove those markers, and retold that history. We've also had the opportunity, I can remember earnestly asking Frankie and some other folks, do Yurok folks want to work in state parks? Do they want to work within state government? Is that too much of an insult to even ask that? And the answer was yes. So we've had people that look like me telling indigenous history since the beginning of parks. So we tried to get indigenous people that were willing and had that support from their families to have some of those hard conversations and tell their own stories on ancestral land. So we've done a bunch of stuff to try and move things in a different direction, and it really comes from, it isn't, it's not that government work, it's we still have formal consultations, but it's relationships that have been built, and it's friends. I got a call from Walt half hour ago, that he calls me and bugs me about this or that is a big deal for me. Got a chance to say hello to Dickie out by Peckmore. That's a big deal for me. And what I try and do is be honorable. I try and do what I say I'm going to do. I try and do things that are good for people. And I try and be a good human being. And try and work it through our laws and policies. And I'll give a plug for Gavin Newsom. That apology that he made, the executive order that he put out, that's a tool that I can use to do good for people that have been excluded from their ancestral lands since Europeans showed up here. That's where he's asking agencies to do exactly what we're doing up here. It's been a beacon for parks across the state park system. What you see now for programming, what you hear about people doing up and down the state is different than they were doing 10 years ago. With that, I'm going to be quiet and move around. Utah. Yeah, I'm done. What else? What else?
So, like I talked a little bit earlier about, being a fighter. And this is kind of where, I get it. I think, my family, comes from the village of Turup here. And when anthropologists were coming down and Krober and Waterman and everybody coming to collect, information, if you look at anything on my village, it says hostile Indians, turned around and left. So that's really where, where that starts and who I come from, like, Vice Chair Myers talked about. But, I kind of went into these government meetings, right? Like, we all do those. We go to these government-to-government meetings, and, sometimes they just get really redundant. We actually, I think when Frankie was TIPO, we had this conversation, like, shit, we forgot to do the agenda. The meeting's like in 10 minutes. Like, what do we do? And I'm like, same thing we do every time. Elk, co-management, gathering rights, ceremony, access. I mean, we literally have that same list every single time, and it gets so tiring to have those conversations. I mean, it just gets old. I mean, looking at council members that have been on council for a while, I mean, like, how many times do we have these conversations? Just same thing every day. And, I was a part of Chopec, jump dance when they brought it back. And, the family had really wanted to bring this dance back. And, before Victor got here, and I remember the first year we went out there, they had these little pin flags, and this is what he's talking about. And it's like we weren't allowed to walk through certain areas because there was a snowy plover, potential snowy plover nesting area. Our elders had to go get special permits to drive on the beach, and only certain people were like allowed to go on the beach. Snowy plovers are invasive here. They're not even native to this area, but they're threatened throughout the state of California. Yuroks don't have a word for snowy plover, and believe me, we have been trying to find it just to see. And so, we did that first year, and it was a little rough. I look over and I see the kids taking the pin flags and like throwing them, like playing spears with them, and I'm like, all right, like, I don't care, like, go for it, and, I'm going down with my uncle to take our dance stuff down there, and, they put Susie Long at the gate, and she's supposed to be the gatekeeper of who can drive in and out, and she just says, hi, Ray, go on in. So we just go cruising down the beach, so we didn't follow the rules anyways. And, that year, we knew what the national park, and, it's a little bit different here, right, because Redwood National and State Park are managed together. So we have that national aspect that we have to deal with, too, and they still haven't come along, and I'm pretty open about this, We're up at our finish-up spot up on the top of the hill, and one of the camps in the fire, they find a point, a lithic point, and they're, like, ready to shut us down. They're like, you can't do this, you're impacting a cultural resource, like, you're an archaeological site, like, we're getting ready to build the dance line when we used to dance down below the hill there. The archaeologist at the time was like, well, Rosie, you need to stay here and cultural monitor this. I'm like, so you're asking me to cultural monitor Walt Lara Sr., Chris Peters, like, my traditional ceremonial people who I learned all of this from. Like, no, I'm not doing that. So I just kicked her out and made her leave, and we did it anyways. But, those are the type of barriers that really were happening in the state park. We had our elders, and how many calls did we get, Frankie and Ryan, like, our elders are down there gathering, and, they're getting run out. or they had our elders stopped up on Bald Hills, searching their vehicles illegally because they look different. And we had a real serious issue on Bald Hills where our people were getting pulled over constantly and targeted, and we had people's dance stuff being searched because they were up there at different hours of the night. It was a really bad environment, and it really linked back to that whole thing of like state parks are places that were not created for us. They weren't created to protect our managing and our connection to the land. It was to remove us, and it was to keep us out. And they were managed from that perspective. We were a threat to that land, like we were going to somehow ruin it, even though we had been managing it for since the beginning of time. And so Victor finally came along, and we've had these conversations change a little bit. Sitting across the table from Victor, like I'm ready to go to battle, walk in, and he's like, okay, sure, what can I do? And he really did do that. We don't have those pin flags anymore. Really the first time I met Victor was down at the jump dance, and well, I guess the kind of time I paid attention, and I look and he's hauling the porta potties across the beach. And I always tell this story because you have a superintendent of a state park down here, and he's doing the shittiest job possible that nobody else wants to do, and hauling the porta potties across for our ceremony.
That's how little Walt and I bonded.
Yeah, that's how he kind of bonded with some of the Lara family. We have a completely different relationship. Chapek is a ceremonial place, and there's a very long history that I can tell about how that land is no longer, in the hands of the folks that are descendants from there. And what they talk about is, they actually entrusted the state of California to protect it for them, and instead they protected it against them. And they couldn't live there anymore. They couldn't access it. There's the visitor center that's there, and the tribe operates that visitor center, and it's the first tribally operated visitor center in the state park system. And when we did that, we rehabbed the whole thing, me and my crew, and I'm talking like, we were down painting. I was painting. I have a background in museum studies. I have a master's in it. So, I wrote all of the exhibits, put all of that work into it. And we completely rehauled the whole thing. And as we were working, we had tribal folks start to stop in, kind of see what you guys doing. What you guys doing? I see your car here a lot, Rosie, because I have a pretty distinct truck that people notice. You're here a lot, and I'm like, yeah. Well, this is what we're doing. We have an agreement with the state park to operate this, and they'd go, we've never been in this building. And I'm like, this is a really old building. How have you not been in this? And they're like, we just don't go in state parks places. And that was really like eye-opening to think about. Like, I'd say about 95% of our tribal folks who have come through now have said that they've never been in a state park building. And those are places because you go in, right, and you see your history being told. You think about Sume Village and the interpretation that was done there. When I was a kid, I remember going there, and luckily we had Awak Axel Lindgren there, and he would teach us things. But when you go back on another school trip, he wasn't always there because he wasn't a full-time employee of the state park. And we had these white ladies sitting there making dentillium necklaces with us, and I'm like, how in the world is this okay? Like, this isn't okay. And now we have, how many native interpreters do we have at Sume? 5. We have 5 native interpreters at Sume State Park, and we work really closely with them. They work at Chapek with us, but really we've been changing that narrative. I think Victor, I'm going to call you out. We still need to get our elk hunt going, but that's the one I don't think we've settled. And I think about all the councils before us, and that was always their number one. So that's one we'll keep working on. But we have a co-management agreement now to co-manage all of the parks within our ancestral territory. And for me, from my perspective, I think Vice Chair said this is, these parks and these places are temporary to us. We're going to regain all of our ancestral territory. It might not be in my lifetime. It might not be, hopefully maybe in our kids or whatever, but that's going to happen. And so we need to be able to manage them now, so we're handing them something better that'll once be theirs again. So that's kind of where I look at it with my perspective. We have the co-management agreement. we had gathering access, so now all we have to do is show a tribal ID when we go into a park in order to go in and gather what we need. And we haven't had any issues, so it seems like it's been pretty smooth. You know, even just on like the small level, you know, going into Sume, like, used to make me kind of nervous as a kid. You know, you have to stop at that little entry gate there and, you know, tell them what you're gonna do. You know, we going in for ceremony, it'd be like, well, why do you need to park out here? You can't drive in there. And I'm like, well, we got our dance stuff, like we're driving in there, like our family has a camp spot there, like we know what we're doing. And they still would give you like the third degree of why you're going in there. Now it's like literally I just drive through. I don't even stop half the time, I just kind of wave, and they let us through. And they, you know, they start to recognize you, they know what we're doing, or you just have to say you're with the tribe, or I'm going to Sume, okay, have a nice day, you know. So, you know, even on the smaller scale, things have really started to change. There's still a lot of work to do. You know, we have access to redwood, and, you know, you talk about redwood, and, you know, that's the hardest part of my job, has been access of redwood and the conflicts it creates in our community. And, you know, who's number 1 on the list, who's number 2 on the list, who's number 3 on the list, who gets redwood, how do you decide who gets redwood, you know. And it's like we don't really need to do that anymore. Like, we have access to redwood, and, you know, that's just through, you know, Victor and, you know, other folks seeing that, you know, we reuse the redwood, we continue its life, and, you know, being able to rebuild our dance houses, be able to rebuild our canoes. And there's been such a resurgence of canoe building.
There's 6 canoes on the water at any given time from State Park Redwood. Right
Yep.
now.
And more to come. But, you know, that's something, you know, because redwood was a commodity. Like, we weren't allowed, it was timber, you know, timber companies could sell it. It was worth money, it was worth value. To state and national park, you know, if a redwood tree fell, you know, that was habitat for something. And, you know, completely seeing Native people and Yurok people as not, you know, removed from that landscape and not managers or caretakers of that land anymore. And, you know, we have certain things that we do with redwood to continue that life and to care for it. And, you know, we've just gone rounds, and it's caused a lot of harm and a lot of conflict within our own community and within our own tribe. And, you know, now we're starting to see that kind of go away and starting to see places getting rebuilt. A lot of our dance houses are getting cared for. They're getting rebuilt because redwood isn't such a, like, I'm not so scared anymore. I'm not like, well, no, you can't take redwood right now to rebuild the benches down there, but you could take redwood to rebuild the house because I know that needs to be done, but we have to save that for something else. It's like, no, we'll be okay. We can get more redwood. So there really is a change, and, you know, I still don't know what to do. Luckily, I guess the recording's on. I should be careful what I'm saying, but, you know, I can still fight with National Park because they haven't kind of come as far as the state park. And, you know, we have Victor, we have a supported you know, director of state park, Armando, and, you know, we're starting to have real conversations about what that looks like for land transfer. What does that stuff look like? You know, are there mechanisms? Do we need to change law? You know, we're not scared to be the first. We're not scared to make those changes. And hopefully we do one day. So I think that's all. I'm kind of tapped out today.
Let me just end this with a story. So when I came in here, messaging from staff, and in the summers we blow up to like 500 people for 22 parks, you know, 200 plus on non-summer. And I had gobs of staff saying, there's a meeting coming up, and it's a meeting about jump dance, and you're going to meet with families. National Parks will be there. Some folks that are family members also represented on tribal council for folks, and it's going to be contentious. And I had a couple people literally crying in my office that they did not want to go to this meeting because it was so hard for them. And there was this one guy who was real aggressive. So I went to this with that kind of messaging coming from my staff. And as we're going through, we're talking about this and that, and I said, yeah, we can do that. Yeah, we can figure that out. Or yeah, we'll take responsibility for that. About halfway through it, Walt Laura goes, "Where the hell you been, man?" So what started out as something very contentious, it ended, and I was sitting there with Walt and Kishen, so one of his underachiever daughters, who's a PhD full professor over at Cal Poly Humboldt department chair. And it's Walt and Kishen and myself. And this is a Walt Laura joke. I have to acknowledge that. And he looks at me and he's going, "You hear about that airplane that was going down?" And no. "Oh, well, there was this airplane going down. And the pilot went back and told the people, the passengers back there, that he only had 3 parachutes and they needed to figure it out." The people that were there's a physician, he says something else, I'm going to call it a superintendent, there's an old guy, and there's a Boy Scout. So the physician stands up and says, "You know what? Saving my life could save thousands of lives. And I'm going to take one of those chutes." He goes over, grabs it, and jumps out of the plane. Superintendent stands up and says, "Well, I might do something good someday," and goes over and grabs something and jumps out. The old guy looks at the Boy Scout and says, "You know what, young man? You've already got that civic mind. You're already doing for people. You've got a lot of life in front of you. You're going to do a lot of good things for people. You should take that last parachute over there." And then the Boy Scout looks at the old guy and he says, "You know what, sir? You've helped to educate generations of people. What you have for your knowledge and what you pass on to people and how you build community, what you've done over your lifetime is just tremendous. I think we should both go over there, grab those 2 last parachutes, because that superintendent jumped out with my backpack." But anyway, I think it's just a different way of engaging with people, and it starts with relationships. I think that's really what it's all about. Establishing relationships, and then all things are possible.
Any thoughts, questions, comments?
The superintendent was right. He did do something good that day.
And one thing I want to say that Armando was mentioned, he was unable to be here today, but sends his love and wishes that he could have been with us today. He was brought up, not the director.
He sent his staff too.
Yeah.
Regarding the state parks, in the late 80s, I was caring for my wife's grandmother. She had diabetes, so I was driving her from Crescent City to Eureka for dialysis 3 times a week. And we're driving through Prairie Creek, and she's always telling me stories. It was awesome to be with her. She was a medicine woman. She was a very spiritual lady. So I'm driving her in her brand new Toyota MR2, she had nice cars. And we're going through the parks, and she says, "I want to tell you something. You need to gather here in the parks." And like Rosie said, it was fear. You don't go in a national park and gather because there's so much red tape, so much animosity towards tribal people exercising this right. So I told her, I said, "No, I'm not doing that," because of the fear. And so she was adamant and said, "No, you need to do that because we fought for that. We fought for you to have that right to gather in there. And so you need to exercise that, or it's going to go away like anything else. If you don't exercise it, they'll take it away from you." And so I never had any opportunity to do that until I became a council member. And I remember my first time at the CNRA, I shared that story of that tribal elder telling me that. And so I used my platform as a council member to convey that message. And now all this is possible. Like you said, there's one more, and that's the hunt. You know, I have. This is recording?
We can stop recording if you want.
Because, you know, as a young man, you know, I grew up as an outlaw, just to say. We had an outlaw. We had to sell fish. It was against the rules. But we needed to survive. So we would go to Fern Canyon, the meat locker. The tribal elders took me there and said, this is our meat locker. And so we would go in there and we'd shoot it up. We'd take it home. And it was scary. But I didn't have a job. I had a family. We got the elk and went home. Next thing I'll get a call from Walt Lara Sr. And I got hired on to work on Sumac Village. So it was a great time to build Sumac. But I didn't have any money. And at the parks, they hold 2 weeks back from me. And so I didn't get paid anything for a month. And I didn't have any money. I didn't have anything. But what I did have was elk meat. So my wife would send me to work every day with a bag of elk meat for lunch. And so Walt, me and Mr. Walt, we had a barbecue every day. It was one of the greatest jobs I ever got to be a part of. I brought elk meat every day. And then the other workers would want to trade me. Hey, did you bring elk meat today? I'm like, yeah. So there was this barter thing going on. And then one of the park rangers shows up. And he was eating the elk meat that I shot in the meat locker. So it was kind of ironic, you know. But that's just a snapshot of the life that I had to live. And Victor talked about making us an outlaw. I mean, I remember saying that. I thought he was talking about me. Because that's how I had to live. And it was like, I've been an outlaw my whole life. Whether it's salmon, meat. But that's what I had to do to survive. But now that I'm older now and I realize it's in my DNA to do those things. But the government tried to outlaw me and starve me out. And one of the things I do have to say for the state parks, how they saved that piece of land. Now we have redwood trees still, or they would be all chopped down. Also, all of our medicine, herbs, and basket materials, and all those things are now preserved. And now we have that opportunity. So, thank you. We're having a good time.
I'm going to add one more funny. Our Tolowa friends up north were saying something, and at some point I said, we don't want it to get caught up in red tape. And they looked at me and said, no, Victor, that's white tape.
Got a million of them. Any other comments, thoughts? Everybody else is pretty white too, it seems. Okay, thank you so much. Thank you for sharing all of.
Thank you for sharing all of that today, and for just leading the way, I think, up here. I think this is such an example of what we could be doing more statewide, so really appreciate it. Yeah.
Right. Just thinking about the stories of gathering.
My family's basket weavers, and I remember as a kid, like going, and it must have been state park or national park, and driving down, and my mom would say, we need to, gather these, different kind of ferns we gather, or I think it was ferns that time. And then she'd say, if a car comes by, you need to toss it into the bush and just act like you're looking around or something. And thinking about now, my daughter, she works at state park, and she has told my mom, like, if you need to gather something, we can go do that. We don't have to like hide it or pretend that we're doing something else. Like, it's just, just thinking about those changes. Like, I don't think my daughter ever had that experience where she had to pretend like she was, doing something else and toss her stuff. And so just kind of, appreciating and just witnessing, I think, from
my daughter's work experience that she's witnessing things herself, and she's learning and she's teaching, and so I'm appreciating all these shifts and changes that are happening, and hopefully this continues, and that idea of land back, so important. That's all I wanted to say. Just recognizing the basket weavers.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so we're going to go into tribal testimony from the Yurok tribe. Yep.
My name is Gary Dowd, and I'm a gatherer. So I gather a lot of things. For people, weave baskets to medicine, and trees. But I got a gathering when we moved out here in '64. I went back into naturopathics in '91, and it kept me healthy. So then I keep doing it. But I got this box right here with wormwood, and I love it. It keeps me healthy. It's good for a lot of things. But the main thing is it rejuvenates your immune system. So you just get older, it goes down like that, and it revitalizes it. And I can say it like this: everybody's got 3 layers of skin: the outer, the inner, and the all right, the outer is disinfected. Try to go to the inner one. If you put wormwood on it, it'll go right to the outer one, kill it. Go to the inner one, kill that, pull it out, the new skin comes in. It comes in fresh. That's one of the things you can do. It can coagulate faster than your natural system. If you cut a big cut like that on it, then it stops. I've been in the hospital a couple times, and the nurses couldn't believe it. The doctors, when they show the doctors, they just go, huh, because they know about it. They just can't use it. All right, no, I got wormwood in here, really good wormwood. But there's other mushrooms coming out. They come up with mushrooms and powerful stuff, and especially that conch. Conch is really good. It just takes a little bit more harder work to do it. A lot of people, they mix your plants. Personally, I like this right because you can get it in from a doctor, but it's not the whole plant. They take something out and they don't take that out. See, I use the whole plant. The whole plant is good for a lot of things. Like especially the way I do it, I put about a handful in get about 5-gallon bucket of water, heat it up, bring it to a boil, and breathe through my nose and mouth. Like that. And the steam goes in there, goes right to my face, opens all my pores, all the pores like that, and then takes out the poison you got in you. It does the same thing with your feeding system. It goes right to your lungs. It loosens everything up so you can cough it out the next day. And that's what saved me from COVID. What else you it's good for aches and pains. They're using it now for cancer, but they still can't use the whole plant. But Native Americans can under our Indian gathering rights, where we lived before. So they can administer it to themselves without the AMA approval, or they give it to another Indian tribe. That's what I'm going to try to do with that, and spread it around other Indian tribes, and then see where it goes from there. But if it works, they're going to have to legal. Pharmaceuticals don't want it. It's just cheap. It's easy to get. And most people say it's too easy. It's not good for you. Well, maybe it's good for you. I have some right here. They used to sell a bottle out. They can't do it anymore because I guess pharmaceuticals told them not to do it because getting out of the bag, you can do it yourself. but it takes a while. You gotta get it, and you gotta process it right, and then administer it right. The way I do it, like through the steam, and nobody taught me how to do it. I just figured it out. Exhale. It's good. Yeah, it's good for your breathing. It goes your blood cells, your aches and pains, cancer. You ought to use it. I had a friend of mine. He had some kind of disease right there, and I told him, "Hey, try this out." So he tried it out, and I told him where to get it. But I left for about a year. I came back. He didn't get it, so he died. A lot of people, after they say, "Hey, it does work," so, they say, "Well, I'm not a doctor. It's just stuff that I learned. I wanted to pass it on." But let me see right here. In this box right here, I got enough in there for about over 200 people to get healthy. If you get a cough, cold, flu come around, get this, do that seed treatment, the whole family is gone. Everybody's packed it out. So, to keep the family from getting the flu, who would you pay? The doctor, you go to the doctor, you got to pay a doctor bill, you got to pay medicine and all that. It's just right here to do it. I also got this. But you smell the mentholatum in it. It's just powerful. It's so powerful. It's how you take care of it and process it. Now, you can put it in a stop. Well, I think it's better to straight out like this. If you get it right here, put it in a bag, put it in a cold place, wait for somebody to get sick, use it. Use it. I was selling something at a clinic, but then they stopped because they figured out, well, they can get it themselves. Yeah, you can. But it's gathering, you just got to go out and gather it. Not too many people gather. So I was, it's supposed to say, don't tell other people like that. Hey, don't tell them any tricks. Well, I just want people to get healthy, stay healthy. And if I make a little money of it, that's prerogative for it. Because it's work. Good work. But if you've all been up on it, mushrooms now coming out with, just about the last 5 years, there's so many different kinds of mushrooms. Mushroom will help another mushroom out, even if it's not the same kind. They got a network in there. And this network is some kind of communications that the scientists can't figure out, but it works. That's why there's more and more mushrooms, different mushrooms growing every time. There's helping another, helping another. And they were there from the start. And just like before the Europeans got here, before the conquistadors got here, or the Asians, or even Vikings, Indians had a life, and this was it. He treated the world right, and they say, how they learn? They say, who was they? The spirits told people, and just want to pass it on. And that's what I'm doing. So if you want some, I got it for sale, and store in the place dry, and you just stick, hop in there, it's over. I'm going to start selling it at flea markets. If you give out I got a little stair here. I call it Gary Lore. I'll go into that later. I got practice it more. But people, everybody that tried it, they love it. And you go, well, how come nobody told us about it for? Because they didn't want to know. Oh, and then this fish right here. My friend just asked me, he needs some gas money, so if I get so if anybody wanted a fish, yeah, $30 donation. Tastes great. And I'm glad we got gathering rights back in the parks. And like I do, I get willow roots, I get basket material. Because that's we call it the way we live. We had to do it when we were young. As you know, we got a little older, we had to do it, but now I'm doing it again. Because that's life. Oh yeah. No, I had Zydeco about 3 weeks ago. I've been using this, and I'm almost off of it now. And that's hard to get off of. Just gotta believe in it. That's about all for now.
Any other comments, thoughts, feedback? Okay. Got Councilmember Crone is freezing in the shade over here.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. We're gonna be out of here for the day because it's so cold. Not to be disrespectful, but super cold. See you Monday.
So we'll turn it over to the Yurok tribe for some testimony. Which one of you wants to?
I want to start out by apologizing not making it here for the first 2 days. I had some bear problems. I had a bear around my house, and I have a Belgian Malinois. And he jumped through my bedroom window after bear at 3 o'clock in the morning. So I've been fixing my windows at my house. Belgian Malinois are the real deal. What I wanted to share though was about the truth of my life and about how intergenerational trauma has affected me from my ancestors all the way to me and to my children. You know, I'm a Gen Xer. I was born in 1967. I grew up in the time of the 70s where there was a resurgence of our culture. I grew up in this community. We had a bunch of elders here that were teaching us language, hide tanning, and dancing. There was a tremendous group of elders in this community that took that burden on themselves to make sure that we brought this forward. All these things. You know, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. She was always filling me full of knowledge that I didn't know. You know, I was a young child sitting at the footstool of my grandmother. And I was a small child, and she was teaching me these lessons. I didn't even know what they meant. Why would you tell these little kids some of these things? And so one of the things that my grandmother taught me about, it kind of applies to the missing emerging Jesus issue we got going across the country right now. She shared a story with me about her mother, who was born in 1865. Her name was Yurok Nellie Jackson. My great-grandmother, she was bought and sold 5 times. In our culture, you purchased your wife. She was remarried 5 times because a lot of her husbands were killed and drowned. She had my grandmother was born in 1912, so that makes her 47 years old when she had my grandmother. And she told me that in the time of my great-grandmother, Fort Turwer was here, and that they could not go out and gather materials, or they would be beaten, or they would be raped. And our men
would have to hide out in the bushes because there was a bounty on them. And so I'm a kid. I didn't understand these things. Why would you tell a little kid these things? But now it serves me now. What she knew was she could put that inside of me, and I was going to carry that forward to today, to share with you today. My grandmother, she went to Chemawa boarding school. And she would tell me stories about Chemawa. I didn't really know what they meant or how they affected me now. As I was going through this cultural awakening that was happening in the 70s that I grew up in, this one elder was teaching us Yurok language. And so my grandma was a fluent Yurok speaker. She used to call up her sister on the phone just so they could speak Yurok every day. And I would listen to them talk. And so one day, the curiosity, like, Grandma, how come you don't teach me Yurok? And this is the heartbreaking part. She told me, because it will never serve you. It will never be good for you. You're better off being a white person. You don't need to know this. So as a child, I accepted that. Okay, Grandma knows. But now I look back on that statement, and what I realized, that Chemawa killed that in her. They convinced her that she was better off being a white person. And so that came to me. She told me I'm better off being a white person. But what that did to me is it caused a conflict inside of me. Because here I am in the resurgence of a culture, being taught all these things, and the person that I love, when most precious people in my life are telling me it's not good for you. She didn't like me going to dances. And I thought it was the greatest thing to be doing. Jumping center as a little kid in front of all the people was like the highlights of my youth. But my grandma said, I don't want you going there. Because in her time, ceremony, people were killing each other. She told me stories of going to a dance and there was a dead body laying on the trail for the ceremony. And nobody did nothing. They just walked by this body and went to ceremony. I grew up trying to struggle to learn my culture. I started dancing. I was the only one in my family that was doing it. Nobody else in my family was doing it except for me. So my grandfather noticed that I liked dancing. He said, okay, next time you go, come see me. Now that's what the old people say. They don't tell you everything. They just say, come see me. So it's just mystery, right? What's he going to do? But my grandfather was a big man, well-respected man. So we were going to ceremony, and my dad says, go up and see the old man. That's what we call him. We call him the old man. So I went, I was afraid of him. He was a big man. There's always these stories of how tough and how strong and all these myths. He was mythical. So I go up to him and say, Grandpa, I'm going to the breast dance. Okay, he says, wait right here. He goes in the back room. He comes out with this old-time suitcase, the kind you see in movies now, vintage movies. And it's full of regalia. Old regalia. And he gives it to me. I'm a little kid. And he says, okay, when you get to the dance, you take this to the feather dance. So my parents drive me over there to Shregon. And I jump out. But my parents weren't healthy people either. My parents were drinking all the way over Bald Hills, smoking marijuana. My parents weren't healthy. And so they pull up to the dance and basically throw me the suitcase and kick me out and drive off with the music blasting, beers going. So I'm a little kid going to the dance. And so I go down there and I hand the suitcase to the ceremonial keepers. But what happened was every time I go in there, when they said, "Come get your feathers," every time I ran down there, I was decked out. I was dressed. And we were little kids, and at that time in the ceremony, we couldn't hardly get enough people to fill the pit. We could only fill half of it because not very many people were dancing. There was almost no girls in the pit. Zero. That's the times that I grew up in. You know, my father was a Vietnam veteran, so he had demons of his own. He had PTSD and all these things. I look back at my pictures of my family when I was a baby. I look at my parents, and I see hope. I see brightness. I see what I remember was when I had my first child. We're gonna do this. We're gonna be good parents. But it didn't happen. My father was an alcoholic. He had been a victim of domestic violence. He had watched his mother being victimized by men time and time again. So I grew up in that, watching violence. You know, as a little kid, I'd run around the neighborhood, play, Gen Xers. Nobody watched us. Like, we just ran off. Our parents locked the door and said, "Don't come back until dinner time." So we go running off, and I remember coming back home as it's getting dark, going to my house, and from a long distance you could see there's something going on over there. So me and my friends were getting closer, and we're getting closer, getting closer. All of a sudden, as I get closer, I realize that's my house. It was my dad hurting my mom. And the part of it is, I had to go in there. I had to go walk in there knowing what I was walking into. And so I did. What I remember is being helpless. Helpless, not being able to escape what I was in, because I was a kid. Eventually, my mom got away from me, divorced her. And I had a stepfather come in. He had his own demons. He had alcoholism, Vietnam veteran. But in the meantime, I'm in this resurgence of our culture. I'm being a part of this thing where I was a little 12-year-old kid with a red bandana, militant, aim, Indian power. That's how I grew up in my teenage years. Watching alcoholism, being taught alcoholism, not knowing about generational trauma, not knowing about any of these things. Like I talked about earlier, I had this spiritual ball and chain attached to me in my spirit that wouldn't let me move forward. I couldn't escape. When I was going through high school, they had this program called Success in Both Worlds. I was supposed to, as an indigenous person, I was supposed to figure a way to live in the white world and the Indian world. That's what was supposed to be for me. And I failed in the white world. I failed. I hated school. I was a straight A student. I was one of the most gifted students of my class. I was supposed to go to college. I was supposed to do all these things. And the elders at the time wanted me to be where I'm at. But they wanted me to go to college, but I hated school so much. I didn't fit in. So I skipped on college. I had counselors that filled all the paperwork for me to go to college. All I had to do was go walk up and get my financial aid check, and I was going to be a college student. but I hated it so much. And so many of my elders and people were disappointed in me because I didn't go to college, because I wasn't going to reach the potential that they wanted for me. They told me, you're going to be our leader of tomorrow. You're going to lead us. But because of all the trauma and all the things that I was hiding inside of me, I didn't feel worthy. I felt ugly. So what was my master plan? I joined the U.S. Army. I enlisted in the Army. What I found out when I joined the military was they put trauma on you to prepare you for war. And so when they tested me for trauma, that was easy. I was unshakable because of all the stuff that I had already lived through. And so I was advanced through all the training because they didn't have to condition me. I was already conditioned to trauma. But what the military did to me was I became an alcoholic. I started drinking. And one of the things about living in two worlds, I didn't fit in the white world. So I didn't have girlfriends. I didn't have relationships. I was alone. And so when I got out of the Army, I prayed to the Creator. I said, I'm tired of being alone. I want a wife. I want someone to love me. I want to have that relationship, that somebody cares for me, that wants me to feel love. I said that prayer, I didn't really think the Creator was real at that time. I come home, down here on the river. We fish every year. I come down here and fish with my father. I go down the boat ramp, and I'm getting our boat ready, and I look up the boat ramp. Oh, I forgot to tell you, I told the Creator I wanted a blonde wife, and she had to be beautiful. So I turn around the boat ramp, and here this beautiful blonde Yurok woman is. And I'm like, oh my God, the Creator's real. True story. I'm like, oh, I was so scared. He answered my prayer. I'm like, dang. So I went up and talked to her. I asked for her phone number. She gave me a phone number. She asked for my phone number. We exchanged phone numbers. The funniest part of the story is we gave each other fake phone numbers. She gave me a fake phone number. I gave her a fake phone number. Because we were so scared, right? The summer went by. So we finally ended up Salmon Festival. We started dating. And we both come from rough childhoods. So nobody thought we could ever build a family with where we come from. She got pregnant 3 months after we were together, which is kind of weird, right? You only together 3 months, you get pregnant. But nobody was happy for us. It was me and her against the world. So we took on that challenge. Like Vice said, we're fighters. We don't care what you guys think. We know we're strong enough and we can do this. She had my daughter in August 26, 1988. And I remember being an alcoholic, still messing with drugs. But this baby was going to fix me. It gave me something to change. It gave me a reason to change. It don't work like that, though. But I started this journey of being better, getting healthier, struggling. But then my trauma started to come out in this relationship. Her trauma started coming out in this relationship. Sometimes it was really good, sometimes it was really bad. And we struggled and we struggled. Then we had another child in 1991. My son. Struggling to find work. Struggling in this white world that I didn't fit in. Finally,
It was Mother's Day, 1992. I had addiction and run its course in my life. I had nothing. Spent all my money. My family was in hardship. Couldn't support my wife and my child, which is terrible. That's a terrible thing. It was taught to me from my grandparents. If you can't support your family, you're terrible. And so my mom, I love my mom. I'm a mama's boy. I'm the only son. So I'm special. And so I love my mom so much. I said, Mom, I can't afford to buy you anything for Mother's Day. But what can I do for you? I'll cook for you. I'll clean for you. Whatever you want, Mom, I'll do it. She says, just come to church. I'm like, well, that's easy. That's easy. I'm getting off the hook. I went to church one day and it changed my life. It didn't get fixed overnight. It gave me a reason to be better. It gave me a vehicle to fight addiction, to overcome alcoholism. It took me a lot of years and years of sober use, sober use, sober use. And in the meantime, this is all impacting my children. This is impacting my daughter, my son. But I'm still trying to be better, trying to be better. I had lots of years of sobriety, but I always got broke up in between. Trauma after trauma after trauma. I'd always go back. Finally, my children grew up. They had their own families. I went off, got a new career being a truck driver. I was a long-haul truck driver. Me and my wife took off across the United States. All over the country, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. Seeing lots of beautiful things. This country's beautiful. Trying to make my way back home. I got a job locally working, trying to continue to come back home because home is calling me. You can go anywhere you want here, but this place is calling you back. These people here that I love is where I'm comfortable, where I fit. In the middle of that struggle coming back, one day I get a phone call that my daughter was missing. And so you don't want to think that your child kidnapped, whatever. You don't want to think that. So I was just thinking, well, maybe she just took a girls' night out. And just kind of needed some time away. Disappeared, going to the radar. So we decided to come home and they found her. She wrecked in a car on Highway 101 and she passed away. She had a ruptured aorta. And to me, I interpret that's a broken heart. Her heart is broken. I feel like I broke her heart. So I hurt. But I wasn't going back to drinking. I wasn't going back to using drugs. In her honor, I was going to do this sober for her children, my grandchildren. I was determined to not use anymore. I struggled. Praying every day, praying. The Creator's not answering your prayers. The Creator abandoned me. I exhausted every single mental institution in this county that you could possibly use to find relief, and none of it None of it helped. I went inside. I continued to go inside myself. Like I mentioned earlier, the first thing I said is, why did you take my daughter, Creator? What wasn't I doing what you wanted me to do? I was getting sober. I was doing all these things. Why? And in a moment of clarity, this voice said, she's with me. And I'm like, oh. That changed that. All of a sudden, I was able to get better. Continued and continued and continued. Cried, why did you give me this hard life? This Yurok life is freaking hard. I never had a chance from the moment I was born. I never had a chance at a successful life. Why did you do that to me? I thought you loved me. One of the things I found out was with the Creator, one of the things you disappoint him is when you're not happy with where he put you. When you're not happy in the life he gave you. In my struggle to come back, I got fired from a job over here because I was not well. I was really, really shell-shocked. But I was struggling. So I called up Yurok Tribe. I need a job. I need a job. And they said, well, just hold on, hold on. I said, it's too late for that. I'm already fired. Okay, we're working on it. We're working on it. So I came back home and started working for my tribe. They got me on. And I worked with a bunch of young men. I get emotional because these young men, Yurok men that I worked with, picked me up and carried me on their backs to get to where I'm at today. Those young men, one of them is his brother, Councilmember Ray's brother. The other one is Vice Chairman's brother. These men picked me up and carried me. They saw me come in all broken. They did everything for me. I had to do no hard work at all. These young men did everything. Over the course of a year, I started to heal. I started to get back to myself again. I didn't realize how all this healing was taking place inside of me. And I started working on our sound restoration project. I got over there, started excelling. I loved it. I was growing. I was doing all this stuff. And I remember we had a moment, me and one of these young men, he's sitting there, he looks at me. They call me Philly. That's my name. He said, Philly, you sure have come a long way. I'm just like, damn. They shared that with me. I started asking the Creator, what do you have for me? Council position came up for election. So I asked, is this what you have for me, Creator? So I ran for North District Council. And it was a battle for the North. Epic battle for the ages. I'm over exaggerating, but it felt. And I won. So to me, the Creator said, this is what I had for you. All that lifetime of trauma, all those things that you had went through, all that stuff was for now. Talking to Victor being an outlaw, all those opportunities. Because of what it took me to get here, I don't leave nothing unsaid. I don't leave nothing unturned because I don't know how long I'm going to be here.
I'm not going to have any regrets when I leave this office to make sure I did all I can to serve the Creator, what He had for me. But then through this journey where I'm at now, just start putting all that in perspective of what my grandmother went through, what my ancestors went through, how all that came on to me. And I'm the one the ancestors are looking for to change this. My wife says, you're the one that the ancestors prayed for. You're the one. My wife's my biggest fan. I do this job not to satisfy the people that are here. I do this job to satisfy the ancestors. Because when I leave this place and the ancestors greet me, when they welcome me into that next world, I want them to tell me, well done. You did this, proud. Well done. That's who I do this for. And then the ones below me, the little ones, my grandchildren and their grandchildren, hopefully some of the work that we do, it's going to be better for them. And so I really cherish this moment that I am right now. My life was for now. So I can feel what everybody else is going through. And I can help fix it and help change it. And have the government listen. Because all this is from the policies that they put upon us. They left us on this reservation with nothing. Extracted all of our redwood. Devastated all of our water for gold. And then left us here with no economy. And now that's on us leaders here to build this economy, and we're doing the best we can. We're doing phenomenal work. I'm very proud to be a part of this council that I'm part of. My family. So exciting to be where we're at right now. I just want to be one of the ones that changes the narrative and moves the needle in our favor right now, and this is the time. Walk off.
No, I think Phil said a lot of our stories. We had the conversation about what we're going to present today, and I think we wanted you to tell your story because you tell it well, and it's one that's shared by a lot of Yurok. A lot of pieces are shared by a lot of our people throughout the years. And this story of restoration is where we're at now. As a tribe, that's where we're at. We've come through a lot. We've dealt with a lot of traumatic experiences that have been passed down. In the same way that us as individuals are restoring ourselves, we're restoring our tribe, we're restoring the land around us. You know, it's important that we tell our history, tell it through the eyes of our people. There's no better way to explain what happened to us than to tell it from someone who's seen it and felt it and heard it and come out the other side. And I think that's where we're at as Yurok people right now. It's for the future generations to work on. That's why we're doing this work here. And it's the story that I think Californians need to hear. They need to understand where we're coming from, where we're at. And thank you for that. So I appreciate you sharing that with Truth and Healing Council, with all of us today, the rest of the rest of the Yurok story, we can find the research for. We can pull up the dates of negotiation for the treaties and when the reservation was created and when it was expanded and when it was decreased and the Dawes Act. And what you can't find is Philly's story, Rosie's story, my story, Ryan's story, the story of our families. You're not going to find that in a book anyway. You're not going to research and come up with that. Those are the stories that we want to tell, the ones that give context to the history. You can find the MOU online that we signed with Victor. But you won't hear the story of how it affected Rosie's life, or her mother's life, or her family's life, or the dance people's life, how it changed them. You can look and find a restorations effort, but until now you won't be able to hear Phil's story online. Maybe you will now. Shit, I don't know. Thank you all for coming. I appreciate the conversation, appreciate the dialogue. Hopefully we added to the story of California. Hopefully we continue this and we continue to move, and look forward to discussions of how we can write a report that is meaningful, that truly tells the narrative of all of California and its diversity, makes recommendations that have real impact and change for future generations and those who are alive today. Once again, the last few days sitting and listening and going through this, definitely appreciation for you all who are doing this. I know it can't be easy. You're just a bunch of regular Indians yourself, and appreciate the work you're doing. Appreciate you listening, and thank you. Welcome. Good.